What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the holiday spectacular edition of the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. Wherever you're watching today, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward, which is here every Tuesday and Thursday starting at noon. I said it's the holiday spectacular, and I mean it, you guys. We have a great lineup today. Ken Kale will be joining us shortly, and we've got interviews with Red Wings legend Mickey Redmond, not Ricky Medman, MLB Network's John Marosi, Hockey Hall of Famer Larry Murphy, and that's not all, you guys. We are covering Steve Yzerman's press conference beginning at 2:30 today, and we've got a one-on-one interview with Al Avila, the Tigers general manager. So both general managers joining us today. Art, I don't think it's like a Christmas miracle. This is going to be such a good show.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Daniela. It's certainly going to be a great show. Really, really looking forward to it. It's the holiday season. I'm starting to get in the swing of things. I think, you've got your holiday sweater on, and, you are Miss Christmas.
Hold on. Peace on earth. And this is Santa and Jesus driving a car. So it's great. I love art. This was the best part of my week last week when I received this package in the mail from you.
You are Miss Christmas, and you're the triumvirate, as they say, of Christmas. Miss Christmas, you, Jesus, and Santa. It just doesn't get any better when you're celebrating the Christmas season.
You look so festive too. I look like I'm really slacking today. You look great.
This is a Red Wing Santa cap that they gave me many, many years ago. I mean, a long time ago. And since that time, I'm probably going to get head lice because several different Red Wings have used this over the years in promotional things that they were shooting. And I used to bring it around all the time. Yeah, I know that Jimmy Howard's worn this. Henrik Zetterberg's worn this, and a few other the ancient Red Wings have also worn this. Besides myself, I still have the tag on it that they gave me.
It might be worth some money one day. I'll keep that.
Yeah, I guess so. But it has a big Red Wing logo on it. I don't know if you can really see it. It's kind of cool. It says Detroit Red Wings. Yeah. Good.
It's great.
And then my Santa vest that used to hang on me, but during my quarantine wait, I actually look like Santa. So it's this thing. All my clothes are fitting snugly right now, so that's not a good thing. But aside from that, but you look great, Miss Christmas with Jesus and Santa. Looking really good there, Daniela.
Miss Christmas, Jesus, and Santa, the big three. That's it for you guys right there.
The big three. I think that's a VW minibus that you're driving. I think it's
let's actually get into the big three art presented by Chevy and talk about a Christmas miracle and our holiday spectacular show. We've got great news. The NHL is back. Puck drop January 13th for a 56-game season. Training camp can start on January 3rd for playoff teams and December 31st for those non-playoff teams, which includes our Detroit Red Wings. Now, Art, how do you feel about the time that was allotted for training camp for both those non-playoff teams and the playoff teams?
Well, I guess I have to go by what the players say. They say that they probably needed about 2 weeks, and the Red Wings wanted a week extra. They ended up getting 3 days. That's why I'm convinced Gary Bettman's going to tell Detroit that they're going to draft 32nd overall in the first round, no matter what, because he deems it. I don't know if 3 days is really enough. I know when we talk to Steve later today, I'm sure that that's going to be brought up. They went from 2 weeks to 10 days to 5 days, now down to 3. But I think they just want to really get the season going. So I look at it this way. I think any time that the Red Wings have had on the ice, most of them are back here. They're skating together in small groups. And so I think it should have been more if they wanted it more. I think you could have left it up to those 7 teams, said, listen, you can start anywhere from 7 to 3 days before, whatever you want, but they really weren't given that choice. I really think that the 7 teams that didn't make the playoffs, and then that whole crazy draft lottery system, those 7 teams have a legitimate beef, I think, with the NHL. And if I know Stephen Gregory Yzerman like I do, I'm sure that in the in the private moments when he's with the commissioner, he might let him know.
Yeah, I would think so too, Art. But let's talk a little bit more about the return to play plan. We've got 4 divisions that the NHL has released. It's the North, the West, the Central, and the East. The Red Wings are in the Central Division with Carolina, Columbus, Dallas, Chicago, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa. Now we're going to have to play each of these teams 8 times with the 56 game schedule. So it's definitely going to be a lot of the same teams. And the Red Wings did not get an easy division with both the Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning and the Western Conference champion Dallas Stars. So we'll see how this all plays out for the Red Wings, but it's exciting to see teams like Chicago back in our division.
Well, right. I mean, playing Chicago, you got to look at it. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's a great rivalry. You know, the Norris family owned both teams for so long. And so, you know, they have an illustrious history, the Red Wings and Blackhawks on and off the ice. You know, Dallas being substituted in for Minnesota. I wish it would have been St. Louis. Then you really could have gotten that old Central Division rivalry thing going. The old, you know, with St. Louis and Detroit and Chicago. I mean, they had some real Donnybrooks back in the day when they were all in the same division. I mean, I think this is a tough division. I mean, I really do. You know, everybody has, you know, I mean, Chicago now without Corey Crawford, who knows where their goaltending situation is. It appears Stan Bowman, the moves that they made last week, that, you know, they might be in kind of a rebuild situation, even though some of their veteran players aren't real happy about it. But it's going to be tough. I mean, let's not, you know, and I'm interested to see how the schedule breaks down. I mean, will they be these 2-game road trips? I mean, do they go to Columbus for 2 games, they being the Red Wings? Then they go to Chicago maybe, and then Dallas, like play 6 games in a week's period, then come back here, and then the Carolina, you know, Florida kind of trip, or, you know, with the 2 Florida teams. It'll be interesting to see how that breaks down, if they will have those, much like baseball. I would be under the impression that they're going to play, if they do this, and I don't know this for a fact, that they would be playing 2-game series in Detroit. Let's say Chicago comes in for 2 games, and then bam, you know, Nashville comes in for 2 games, and then maybe Columbus, and then you don't see the Red Wings for a week as they kind of return the favor and play a couple of games. I think that's how it may play out. But then again, you know, I mean, COVID-19 is going to dictate a lot of things. As we just found out just before the show started, the Lions had to close their training facility today. And so their game Saturday against Tampa is still scheduled to go on. And I'd love to see Tommy Brady back here in Michigan. But we just don't know. So everything's going to be fluid until everyone has the vaccine and we get back to a little bit of a normal thing. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. The division is tough. They're all teams that were in the bubble, except for the Detroit Red Wings. And don't sleep on Carolina. They're a young up-and-coming team, even with Peter Mrazek and net.
Like you said, a lot of things will be dictated by COVID-19. And one of those things that hopefully will help is the fact that there will be an expanded roster and a taxi squad. So there will be a 26-man roster as opposed to the usual 23 plus 4 taxi squad players, which I'm assuming will practice with the team and they will be called up as needed, and team players will be called down as needed. But what really intrigues me about this, especially for the Red Wings, is that they have so many young players that we've talked about over and over again on this show, and them getting their opportunity in the NHL. This might really help them get some playing time.
Right. I think it'll be great. You know, I mean, the AHL season is scheduled to begin sometime in February, in the first week in early February. So, you know, and obviously the Red Wings have signed some players to be specifically Grand Rapids Griffins. The Griffins have signed some of their own players. I mean, they're obviously going to be able to field the team. But, you know, with the roster being expanded by 3 players, you know, that could be, you know, a Giovanni Smith could be here, Michael Rasmussen, Dennis Chalowski. You know, when you look at how it could all break down, you know, certainly Gus Lindstrom, I believe he's going to come back from Sweden. You know, he and Matthias Bromia. We keep forgetting about him. I think he's coming back from Sweden. The really young, high caliber prospects like Veleno and Seider, you know, obviously they're going to stay with their Swedish clubs. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're going to have to need, just based on what happened with the other sports and they're not in a bubble, that is key. You're going to have guys on hand in case, and unfortunately it's probably going to happen, if somebody tests positive, they have to go into immediate quarantine, even though, Grand Rapids is close and, Toledo's even closer. But I would think that you've got to have, you've got the expanded roster to 26. And then depending if there's, heaven forbid, an outbreak, well, then you've got the 4 taxi squad guys, much like the football players. You go to Lions practice and all that. The taxi squad guys are essentially on the team. They might be banished in a corner to dress, where they can be humiliated. But aside from that, they're on the team. They're just not active. They're just not on the roster. And, that's just, a phone call or whatever. Ryan Martin or whomever Steve wants to do that, handles that kind of transaction. Boom, they do it. It'll take a matter of minutes for that guy to go from the taxi squad to the active roster. So, I thought it was going to be 30. I didn't know how it would break out, but 30 seems about right considering the conditions that we're all under right now with COVID-19.
Well, Art, with that being said, we are going to talk a lot more about the NHL return to play plan here with some of our guests. And of course, Steve Yzerman will be addressing the media at 2:30, which we will go to live. So we'll have much more on the NHL update. But with all of this good news comes just a little bit of bad news, Art. We're going to move on to our second topic of today's Big Three. And Alex Fiedo, the Tigers' top pitching prospect, will be undergoing Tommy John surgery at the end of this month sometime. And the recovery for that is normally 12 to 14 months. And that's for them to get back to throwing at the best that they can. The good news is it's a 90% recovery rate for this surgery. We see it time and time again with major league pitchers, but it's unfortunate because we've talked a lot about Alex Fiedo and the chance that he had for the 2021 season to pitch for the Detroit Tigers. So we wish him the best, but like I said, unfortunate to see that he will not be making that debut this season.
Well, first and foremost, I think there is a fascinating book out there about the history of Tommy John surgery and why it's somewhat prevalent in baseball. I don't know if it's, and I don't know this, and I shouldn't speak like this. I used to be a sports doctor on the radio, but that was about as far as it went. But, I don't know if kids are trying to throw too many pitches at an early age or what's going on there. I mean, I feel terrible for Alex Fiedo simply because, Daniela, we've talked to him. He's kind of the linchpin of the Big Four of Skubal, Casey Arthur Mize, Manning and Fiedo. He was the guy that, kind of was, hey, what's up, kind of keeping them all together and keeping it loose, great personality, very talented pitcher, has dealt with injuries essentially since I think the Tigers have drafted him. There's always been something wrong. Hopefully this Tommy John surgery, you said 90% recovery rate. Hopefully it works. We see him in about a year and a half. He'll probably have to go through what Michael Fulmer went through this year, make sure his arm's healthy and strong and pitch himself away. So unfortunately, we could probably be looking at the Alex Fiedo that we all expect to be in the Old English D. Could be 3 seasons away now. I feel terrible for him, but, he's a resilient young man. He'll be fine. He'll be in that Old English D, and he'll play very, very well for the Tigers.
That he will be. We're wishing Alex a safe and healthy surgery and recovery, and hopefully we'll see him soon. Now we're going to move on to our third and final topic of today's Big Three. And we just have to let all of our fans know that the Word on Woodward will be taking a holiday break. We need a little break to enjoy the holidays with our families as best as we can with everything that's going on in the world. But we will be back on Tuesday, January 5th. But there's a little bright spot to this, you Word on Woodward fans. We will have some Red Wings coverage of training camp, and a schedule will be released when we have one. So we still will have some coverage for you guys. I know that everyone's really excited to see the Red Wings back on the ice next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It'll be interesting to see what all the media protocols will be. I don't know when the last time you were in the Red Wing dressing room, Daniela. Well, I think I do know. We were doing the shows for Fox, but take a mental picture of that because it's probably going to be a long time before we're back in there. I'm eager just to see hockey. I'm really eager to see the World Junior Championships be played. I know that they had to cancel some preseason games Sweden and Germany, unfortunately, Sweden, they're not playing. They're going to hit the ground or the ice skating on Christmas Day. But like Team USA is going to be on. They're all on the NHL Network. I think MSNBC or not MSNBC, unless it was a real political tournament. But it's going to be on the NBC Sports Network as well. I think the Team USA game. So I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be a lot of hockey. In this business, it's funny. I guess depending on what you do in this business, but if you do what we do, you never have time off. I can remember being on vacation in Toronto and the Red Wings adding a player, and I'm in one of these malls, the mall where the Hockey Hall of Fame is, and the radio station's calling me. It's blowing up. I had to go on, and I'm sitting in a mall doing a radio show talking about it. I can't tell you how many holidays I've worked, whether it's New Year's Day, a hockey game, or the Lions on Thanksgiving. I mean, sports, there's no holiday. So the word on Woodward is going to be off. But you can bet that yours truly, Daniela and Carly, will still be working their buns off because there's a lot of things that are going to happen during our hiatus, and we'll bring it all to you.
Exactly, Art. It might not be the annual New Year's Eve Red Wings game, but we will have some hockey on New Year's Eve, which I think is pretty exciting.
Well, right, and we'll have I mean, how many guys are going to be there? Did I read something like 36 or 40 dudes? I mean, it's going to be wild. I don't know if they're going to space it out, what Blash is going to do, but I do think what you'll see is, and this is always a good time of year anyway, whenever training camp gets started, but I think you're just going to see a lot of happy faces. Dare I say that maybe even some of the Red Wing players will be happy to see this old mug, because that means if this dude's around, then we're playing. Then hockey might be around. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been too long. I mean, the Red Wings, have almost been off the ice for 10 months or something. So great news, and I'm really glad. And I really think once they just agreed to all the financials and the CBA and all that kind of stuff, that they weren't going to change it, and the players are going to be paid their full salary, even though it's only 56 games. Boom. That's why this was resolved so quickly. Yeah,
that's my cue. He's talking too much. We've got so much show left, Art. I promise we're going to get to everything you want to say. But for now, we're going to
like 6 o'clock. I mean, what are you talking about? Talking too much.
We're going to wrap up the big three. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. And now, everybody, we're going to move on to the mailbag delivered to you by Little Caesars, of course. And today's guest, none other than your Red Wings radio play-by-play announcer, Ken Kale, who I know is very excited today, not only because it's the holidays, and I know he's going to bring something festive to the table. Of course, he always does. And he's got his Red Wings jersey on because, of course, Red Wings hockey is back. Ken, it's so exciting to see you. What a great day.
Happy holidays to everybody, you, Daniela, and Art. And boy, I feel proud that I'm on the Star Spangled Show, or whatever you want to call it. And Mickey Redmond's coming up on your show. I just know that he's going to get into a few ginger ales and start this Christmas holiday season the right way, right? We're all happy. We're all excited about hockey coming back. Had to wear the Red Wing jersey today, so I'm excited for the mailbag coming up.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it, Ken, because we've got some great questions. And the first one is for you. Martin from Kitchener, Ontario asks, we're all excited for the season to start, but now that the season is near, the 10 teams over the salary cap must be panicked. Has Yzerman's leverage to make a deal gone way up?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the Red Wings are in a good situation along with 20 other teams in the National Hockey League when you think about it that are under the cap. So these teams that are over the cap, I mean, things are happening so fast right now that they're going to have to figure out a way to get under the high end of the cap. And, with that said, I think our mail person is right, the person who submitted the question, because now the Red Wings and other teams that are below the cap, they don't have anything to worry about. And you know what? They can just sit back and wait till the final couple of days. And then the next thing you know, there could be a deal made. Now, what this means is that if the Red Wings were interested, let's say in a player like Tyler Johnson, I'm just using him as an example. If Tampa Bay needs to get rid of him and dump a salary, well, Steve can come back and say, well, we'll take his salary, but, you got to throw in a couple draft choices as well. And that puts a little pressure on the Lightning in that particular case. So, yeah, I think Steve Yzerman does have some leverage, and so do 20 other teams in the National Hockey League who are below the cap right now.
Definitely going to be interesting heading into the start of the season, which we know now is just a few weeks away. Art, let's move on to the second question, which is for you. Walter from Naples, Florida asks, the division looks rough with all of the other teams being in the bubble, including both teams from the final. Other than the Hawks, who are you most excited to play?
Well, I guess Walter from Naples, Florida has to be pretty happy. I'm not exactly sure where Naples is in Florida, but his Red Wings are going to be down there 8 times playing Tampa Bay and the Florida Panthers. First of all, I just want to say to Kenny Cal, my dear friend, without question, your tree in that mirror image is by far the best. I mean, that just looks sensational. I mean, I'm looking at it. I mean, it is. I mean, there you go. I mean, I don't know if you set it up that way on purpose. Maybe Darlene did, but excellent. We're looking good. I'll tell you the team that I'm really pretty eager to see in this division. I mean, if you look at it, Columbus used to be in their division. I know it's been several years, and they've played them quite often. Dallas, they've had a long-time rivalry with. Chicago, obviously. And every time I turn around, it seems like they're playing the Panthers and the Lightning. And Nashville used to be in their division too, and they've had playoff series against them. I really think the team I'm eager to see, because I believe they're an up-and-coming team. They're young, they're fast. Former MSU Spartan Rod Brimdamore is doing an excellent job as their coach. And, I kid him, even with Peter Mrazek and net, I'm really eager to see the Carolina Hurricanes. Unfortunately, they've kind of owned the Red Wings lately and have played very, very well against them. But I think that's the team besides Chicago that I'm really eager to see. As I said, they're a young, up-and-coming team. The other teams in the Red Wings division, they have a history with. Now, granted, you could say, hey, and I know Ken's thinking this right now. 2002, didn't they play Carolina in the Stanley Cup final? Well, yes, they did play Carolina in the Stanley Cup final. And that was great. And don't get me wrong, and I believe it's tomorrow, we're going to see legendary Game 3 of the 2002 Stanley Cup final, the triple overtime game. So I understand all that. But out of all those teams, and believe me, I mean, they're playing these guys 8 times. I mean, it's like the Tigers playing the guys in the Central 19 times. We're going to see a lot of these teams. But the team that we have seen least of out of the other 7 teams that the Red Wings are going to face, or the others, is Carolina. They don't have that much of a history with them because they were in different conferences for a long time. Everybody else, either they're in the Red Wing division right now, or they were in the Red Wings division, or they're a long time like Chicago. And I'm going to throw Dallas in there too a little bit, even though they're not an original 16, but they're the former Minnesota North Stars. Then they're the Dallas Stars. So the Red Wings have played. They have a little bit of a history with that franchise as well. That's why I'm going to say Carolina.
It is going to be really exciting, and we should have an NHL schedule within the next couple of days, so we'll know exactly when we're playing all of these teams. Ken, really quickly, who are you looking forward to seeing in the Red Wings division?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Tampa Bay and Dallas beat each other up, so that'll soften things up for the Red Wings, because those are the 2 teams that made it to the Stanley Cup final. So, that could help out Detroit when you think about it that way. But, as Art mentioned, back in the day, in the late 90s, the Red Wings and the Stars had some really big battles. So, Jim Nill, we know he's over there, and that's a team that I'd like to see more on a regular basis, and we're going to see him this year.
I'm really excited for any hockey. So you guys, I'm ready for any team. Throw them at us. Let's go. We got this. Okay. So we're going to move on.
There you go.
To question 3 now. This one is for Ken. Adam from Garden City asks, Wings made a good call to send some of their prospects to the SHL, the Swedish Hockey League. But what happens mid-season when Seider, Lidstrom, Raymond, and Veleno are all available?
I'll tell you what, Adam, this is a very tough question to answer because there's so much uncertainty going forward. And I know Art mentioned this a little bit in the Big 3 segment. You really don't know what's going to happen with this COVID thing yet. It's not like it's under control at all. So, we're hoping that the American Hockey League starts on February 5th. That's the targeted date. So when these players get done over in Sweden or across the ocean, they can come back and finish out the season with the Grand Rapids Griffins. But if the Griffins don't play, now what do you do? And that's the thing. The other thing is when you get these young players and they're playing in playoffs over in Sweden, their playoffs start, I believe, the last week or towards the end of March. So let's just say they get knocked out in the first or second round of the playoffs there. That brings you to about mid-April. Then when they come over to the United States, they have to go into quarantine, I think, for 10 to 14 days. And then by that time, it's the end of April. And my understanding is that the schedule is going to end. The regular season NHL schedule will end around May 8th or May 10th, something like that. So now you only have about 4 or 5 games for these players if you want to take a look at them. So, it might be an advantage in that regard because you don't want them to play a whole bunch of games. You just want to see them play, the limit now changed from 10 to 7. So, you can get guys in there into the lineup and play. And the other question is, and I don't know how to answer this, is you were talking about a taxi squad. If you already have a taxi squad, how are you going to get these people to get in there and be part of your taxi squad or be part of the 26-man or 26-man roster? So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of questions. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. And then once April comes, we'll take a look at it and see what happens from there.
So, Ken, you're saying there's a chance that we could see Moritz Seider or Joe Veleno, maybe in a Red Wings uniform very late in the season. Like you said, I don't want to get anyone excited because there are a lot of factors that go into this, but it is a possibility at this point.
It is a possibility, but on the other hand, where are the Red Wings going to be in the standings at that point? Are they going to be pushing for a playoff spot or are they going to be out of the playoffs? And that's why I say you don't know. Sure, you'd like to see guys like that get in the lineup and play a handful of games. And I'm sure that if the Red Wings aren't in a playoff position, that could be a possibility. But on the other hand, if you've got a pretty good team and you're on the bubble there and you're trying to make the playoffs, you have to take a look at trying to make the playoffs and not just taking a look at younger players.
Another thing that will be very interesting heading into this season, really the whole thing is going to be interesting and exciting at the same time. We're going to move on to the fourth and final question of today's mailbag, you guys. And both of you are going to answer. Art, you can go ahead and answer first. Megan from Akron, Ohio asks, how does Ken Kale stay game ready during the offseason? Does he practice his Red Wings score voice throughout the year? Thanks and go Wings.
Kenny's a bit of a boater, and I know there's a lot of times where I have heard that people on Lake St. Clair have been on their boat and fishing, and it's been real quiet, and then they think that they doze off because they hear in the distance, he scores, and they're like, hey man, what? I swear to God, I must miss the Wings or something. I swear I'm hearing Ken Kale out here. And of course, over the water, that thing just travels and travels and travels, So, that's how he does it. He has, he's talking about Mickey and a few ginger ales. Trust me, Kenny Kale likes a few ginger ales himself. He's on that boat. He's anchored. Everything's secure. He's following all the safety protocols out on the all the maritime sea protocol. He's doing it. And then he just sits there, and all of a sudden, before you know it, in his mind, Mantha, overlook, and he scores! That's what I've been told. I get seasick, so I'm not on a boat a lot. I
can attest to this. Yes. And I thought I was hallucinating the whole time over the summer because I live in New Baltimore. Ken takes his boat out on Lake St. Clair. I'm very close, and this all makes sense now because I was hearing it and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just hallucinating. I miss hockey so much, but it was actually Ken Kale practicing. This all makes sense.
That's exactly right. So if you're out on Lake St. Clair in the summer and you think you're hearing Ken Kale and think it's an aberration or something, or that you've had a little bit too much of the ginger ales yourself, chances are you have not. It's actually Ken Kale.
Well, I do have a quick story for you, and this goes back to your old pal, Sergei Fedorov. And when he was playing in Detroit, he had a boat as well. And I remember one day I'm sitting out in the middle of the lake and I'm just enjoying the sun and a ginger ale or two. And I've got my ship to shore radio on, and some guy's calling on the ship to shore radio. And I go, man, not calling at me. He was just trying to get a hold of somebody. And I go, that guy sounds like Sergei Fedorov, And so I'm listening more. I'm listening to his conversation. And I go, you know what? I got to see if that's Sergei Fedorov or not. Sure enough, I get on there. We switch over to a non-working channel, so to speak. And next thing you know, I'm having a conversation with Sergei Fedorov out there on Lake St. Clair. But as far as getting ready for the season, I know it's going to be a little bit different because I know for the away games, I'm practicing. I'm trying to call a game off a monitor. And that's really difficult because normally when you call a game, you never look at a monitor, only on replay. So I've been kind of practicing, putting some old Red Wing games on, watching, trying to practice a little bit that way. And then my wife always gives me a hard time because sometimes in the morning when I'm showering, I start calling the play-by-play. Here's Yzerman over the line, pass to Shanahan. That's old school. And she starts shaking her head saying, what is he doing? So, you got to just keep the pipes ready, and I'm ready to go. I'm really excited, and I hope the Red Wing fans are too. We're going to have some hockey here on January the 13th.
All right, Ken, I'm going to put you on the spot here because Megan also asked for a little Christmas gift. She wants proof that you've been practicing. Can you give us a call like Megan has just scored a goal at Little Caesars Arena?
Okay, I'd be going like this. Let's see here. Here's Mantha up the right side, and I'll pass the Larkin in front to Megan. She shoots, she scores! And the Red Wings win in overtime. Megan, you're the hero tonight. 3-2 Detroit.
I love it.
Whoa.
I bet that was the best Christmas present that Megan is going to get this year.
Can you do one for me too, Ken?
Oh, my gosh. Don't do it, Ken.
Here's how to Del Vecchio to Regner. He scores! Old school, not Regner.
That's beautiful.
Daniela, she comes in, she shoots, she scores. Whoa, the hat trick. Daniela, Megan, and Art.
Unbelievable. My goal call was great. I had one goal call, Shanahan's goal. Brendan flips it into the Nashville end. He scores. It was out of nowhere. Trust me, it's the weakest goal ever. I don't know who was in net. I doubt if it was Pekka Rinne or whomever. Nashville, the goalie before Rinne, he was there for a long time too. I can't remember his name. It had to be him. It had to be him. Yeah, Thomas Volkoon. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Volkoon. So anyway, but let's put it. Ken's the best at what he does. We know that. And I just tell you, that is a very, very difficult job, and Kenny makes it look so easy.
That he does. Well, Ken, thank you for joining us today. As always, we'll definitely be talking a lot more as training camp approaches, Ken. So thank you again and enjoy your holiday.
Happy holidays to you, and I hope the big fella there on the 25th brings you lots of presents. And Art, I'm sure I'll be seeing you at Little Caesars, you two, Daniela and Carly, and it's going to be a fun time. I just can't wait to get going. So thanks a lot. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you and the fans watching the WOW Show.
Oh, yeah. I'm
I
eager.
really hope that Santa brings me a pepperoni cheeser because Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We still have a lot coming up in today's show, you guys. I told you we're calling it the Holiday Spectacular. We'll be catching up with MLB Network's John Marosi in just a little bit. Hockey Hall of Famer Larry Murphy will join us. And of course, we'll have a one-on-one with Art and Al Avila. And then Steve Yzerman's press conference. We'll take that live at 2:30. But right now, Carly Johnston is with someone who I know is very excited for the NHL to return.
It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And today I'm very pleased to be joined by dear friend, former Red Wings and Fox Sports Detroit analyst, Mickey Redman. How's it going, Mick?
Well, it's going. Been a long 9 months, that's for sure. But I think we've got a lot more in the rear view mirror than we do in the front. So that's good news. And the best news of all is we're going to get our game back. And it seems like it's January 13th. So can't wait for that.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that January 13th start date for the NHL. That puts the Red Wings at between Christmas and New Year's Eve for training camp. This is obviously a much shorter training camp than we're used to. So do you think that could affect the Red Wings, their development at all?
No, I don't think so. These guys are they're pretty much 24/7 anyway, all year long. And the fact that they haven't played in a competitive game, I guess, for 9 months could be a bit of an issue. But you know what? They're young. They're in great shape. They're chomping at the bit. They're eager to get going. They're eager to clean up on what happened last year, which if it was going to go wrong last year, it did. And that resulted in only 17 wins. It was pretty dismal that way. So they can't wait to get after it. And I don't think it's going to be a major deal at all. And the way the game is played these days, it's a little more wide open. There are a lot more giveaways and mistakes. It's, I think, probably more entertaining for the fans, except for the goalies and the coaches and the managers. But that's just going to, I think, add to the allure of getting the game back and having that excitement and that entertainment and that up and down kind of hockey that we're used to.
The lineup's looking a little different this year. We have some new guys coming into Hockey Town: Bobby Ryan, Troy Stetcher, John Merrill, Thomas Greiss, and Vladislav Nemesnikov. Are these guys that you're looking at that will bring a lot of meat to the team and a lot of depth, or how do you think they'll add to the Red Wings team?
Well, I think for the most part, the signings that Steve made are adding depth in the experience department for sure, which is very important when you've got a young team. For a while, I think NHL teams, they went away from veteran guys in the room, and I think that hurts a lot of young players. They have nobody to look to, and I don't mean necessarily on the ice, but off the ice, and just trying to be good citizens and do what you do every day when you're not playing hockey. When you think about it, it's a short period of time. You practice, you play games, you travel, do your thing. There's a lot of off and downtime, and a lot of young guys need direction at their ages. And we went away from a lot of older guys in the game as an institution, not necessarily the Red Wings, but I think that was a mistake. And I think now they're beginning to understand the value in individuals that have been around the game a long time. They've got some age under their belt, and they can help guide these young players both on and off the ice. So I think the signings that Steve has made are they're specific to Bobby Ryan potentially scoring goals, trying to get his career back on track for sure. That kind of motivation is what you want a guy to have. In Stahl's case, they pick up a draft choice for future considerations for a guy that, he's making a bunch of money, but he's an experienced guy back on the blue line. He'll certainly help in the dressing room as well. Stetcher, Merrill, who went to Michigan, we covered him when he was playing with Glendenning at the U of M a few years ago. So I think all in all, the experience that Steve has added to this team will be a big advantage for them. And obviously, they need to cut down on their goals against. They were very bad that way last year as a whole. And if they can score more goals, cut down on a few more at the other end, they'll be much more competitive. It'll make for a happy 56-game season if that's what we get in.
And hopefully we do. When we spoke about veterans, and we lost a few veterans in the off season. Hopefully we'll have some of these new guys to fulfill those spots. But talking about empty spots, there are jobs to be had on this team, and a lot of young guys who are chopping at the bits. One in particular I have my eye on is Evgeny Svechnikov. This is a very big training camp for him. Meg, what can you see coming out of this?
Well, unfortunately, Svechnikov has had the injuries that have really curtailed him. And, he's had really, if he's had any luck, it's been bad luck. So, it's a critical year for him. He's at the end of his contract as well. So I don't know if there's anything he can learn to try to stay out of danger. The last one that he had just looked like a pure accident in behind the net where he tumbled and the knee went underneath him. But all in all, the bottom line is that's what it's all about for young players in this game. You have your opportunity, and boy, you've got to do everything you can to possibly take advantage of that opportunity and make management and coaches say, I can't take him out of the lineup. So for Svechnikov, he's a young, talented kid that hasn't had a chance because of injury to show it. So probably nobody more than him wants to have a good start and try to make the first 12 forwards that play every night on this team.
Another young guy I'm looking at, Giovanni Smith. He's someone who could really bring that rough and tumble play to the Red Wings lineup. I mean, you look at him and his style of play. We don't really have many guys like that on the Red Wings team right now. Do you think that's someone who could get called up and stay for this shortened season?
Certainly could. I mean, having covered the Red Wings with the Bruise brothers, with Probert and Koster for those years, but the game has changed, and Giovanni Smith he understands, as much as he brings that kind of a real passion and physicality to the game, and a bit of you hope a bit of fear in your opponents. He understands he's got to be able to contribute offensively and be good and solid defensively. The game has changed, and that kind of tough guy, only patrol sheriff with a badge on, it's gone. Unfortunately, took the fun away from most of the fans and me too. But that's the way it is. I mean, and Giovanni knows. He looked like he had a pretty good audition last year, and he'll get a chance to show himself this year. And who knows, with this craziness with the pandemic, hopefully we don't get anybody sick. But you know what?
Yeah.
Injuries are really a big prominent part of the game anymore. The way the game is played, the quickness of the game. So if he gets his chance again, I'm sure he's going to take every opportunity he can to try to foothold and stay here.
All right, I feel like I'm asking you about every player on this team, but it is fun to get to talk to you and pick your brain about it. I know we haven't had a captain for a couple seasons, but do you see this happening? Maybe Larkin will be wearing a C this season?
I don't know. I have no inside information on that, Carly. I'm wondering whether they'll just wait, until we hopefully, crossed our fingers, are able to go into September's training camp in 2021 with this aberration behind us and a little more stability in the organization and go there. That's my guess, that they may not do it for that reason, and that's not a bad reason, and it's not a knock against Dylan Larkin either. He's still very young. A lot of people say it's his team. Well, that's good, and he's okay with that. He's also okay with them not naming a captain as quickly as a lot of people would like it to happen. So Steve is very, very well thought out and systematic in the way he does things. So whatever he does, I'm sure it's going to be the right thing, whether it's to do it now or to wait until next September or next summer when the smoke clears from all this craziness.
We see the realignment of the divisions. Do you think, now we look at Detroit playing some of their old rivals, which is really cool, but do you think this could hurt the Red Wings, help the Red Wings, or completely indifferent? It doesn't really affect them in any which way.
I don't know. You're probably too young to remember Chuck Norris. Do you remember him? You know who that is?
I remember him.
Huh? The actor?
I remember, yes,
You do? Okay. All right. Well, we used to call the Norris division the Chuck Norris division because it was all the fighting. That's the way it was back in the day. We had Toronto, we had Chicago. There was nothing but brawls all the time. It was wonderful stuff. It was very entertaining. But so to get Chicago back is cool. To get Taves and Kane. Listen, Florida's a very good team. Tampa Bay's coming off the cup. Carolina is young and really, really good. Minnesota ended up going to the West, and we get Dallas, who goes to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, that couldn't be a worse break for us than anything, but because Minnesota's not as good as Dallas is. But hey, listen, it is what it is, and we're in the middle of a rebuild. That's the way it goes. So I think it'll be the better the competition, I think, is really good for our young people. It does you no good to play against people who are lesser valued than you are in experience and talent and all that stuff. So, you know what? It'll be great experiences whether we win or not, to be able to play against these top line guys. Our young guys can learn from them and the experiences that they have in those specific games against teams that are up there now, winning Stanley Cups, competing for the cup every year. I hate to tell you what, the craziness of what's going on. I mean, good God, we're going to play games 3 or 4 nights, 2 and 2 back to back, go on the road, play 2 games in the same city, and save all that travel. It's going to be, a lot different. Talent usually comes to the forefront, cream rises to the top, but it's going to be a different adjustment for a lot of young players for the way we're going to have to play this season out. So, hey, you never know, but having won only 17 games, the saying, we can only go up.
Yes, Mick. Well, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this since I found out that we got an interview with you, Mick. Wore my Carhartt just for you, and you certainly put a smile
I
on
was
my
going to
face.
say, looking good with the Carhartts. I got mine on here, as you know. They're on every day. What can I tell you?
I know, right? This has been a perfect time to cycle through my Carhartts. Haven't been on camera. Don't have to dress up as much. So,
well, come the 13th, you're going to need them because you'll be on television. We'll have you on TV, whether there's fans there or not. Makes no difference. So you'll be looking good by the 13th.
I'm ready to go tomorrow. So fingers crossed I'll be seeing you sometime soon at Little Caesars Arena. Again, socially distant with masks.
Happy holidays to all the Red Wing fans out there. Stay safe if you can, as best you can. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the 13th.
Love it. Happy holidays, Mick. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Carly. You and Mick, quite the dynamic duo there. I always love when you guys catch up. It was a great interview. And not only does Meijer bring us catching up with Carly, but they have partnered with the Red Wings and the Tigers to help some families in Detroit this holiday season.
It's important to give back. It's important to represent these organizations, and it's important to give to these people and talk to these people and let them know there's a lot of us out there who really care about them.
Hi, Deweese family. This is Matthew Boyd from the Detroit Tigers.
I'm Darren Helm with the Detroit Red Wings.
I'm John Merrill.
Luke Glendenning with my wife, Paige.
Sorry I couldn't be there with you, but I hope you enjoy your surprise and have a wonderful rest of the holiday season.
Oh my goodness, that was so awesome.
Thank you so much.
Another big thank you to Meijer and, of course, our Tigers and Detroit Red Wings for making the holiday special for some families around the area. Now, you guys, we're going to get in to Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook, an official gaming partner of the Detroit Tigers. And, of course, Carly Johnston is going to join us for this one. And we're going to have some fun since this is our last show before the holidays. We want to share some holiday traditions that we bet you didn't know. And mine's a little weird. I'm going to get into New Year's. I'm kind of skipping Christmas. But here, for my tradition, I found that New Year's Day in Korea, everyone actually ages a little bit. While Koreans celebrate their birthday on the actual day they are born, they also consider themselves a year older on New Year's Day. Additionally, when you are born in Korea, they consider you 1 year old. So you're born, you're already one. So for all the babies born in Korea on December 31st, they're 2 years old on the next day. I can't find the origin of this tradition, but it really did jump out to me. And you guys know math is not my specialty, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but I feel like I'd already be 30 if I lived there.
I think you might be a little older than that. I don't know. I mean,
don't age me anymore. My gosh. But what tradition do you have for us, Carly?
Oh man, I really hope that tradition isn't true. But what I found is a tradition from Asia that is unique for its 11 secret herbs and spices. This one's very peculiar. In 1974, Kentucky Fried Chicken, like KFC, the drive-through restaurant, I guess you would call it fast food, started an ad campaign in Japan to have people order a bucket of chicken and thanks for Christmas. Today, people in Japan order KFC. It's called Party Barrels as chicken, shrimp, coleslaw, and triple berry tiramisu cake months in advance. Like we order hickory ham or whatever it's called, whatever have you, when you eat on a Christmas thing at KFC. There are roughly 3 million orders of KFC on December 25th in Japan. The promotion is complete with replica Colonel Sanders statues dressed as Santa in front of stores, and it is estimated that this single day, this one day, December 25th, accounts for a third of the profits for KFC in Japan. How odd, right? I'm probably not going to have KFC on Christmas Day, but come on, it's only because you can't get the triple berry tiramisu cake in the United States. But also, I know, isn't that weird? But also, before we move on, Art. So Danielle, I know you showcased your ugly sweater. Before Art goes, I have to showcase mine. Art sent us these as presents. I have to turn it on. Okay, so this is great, right? I got the cats, but this is the best part. How amazing is that?
Wait, do you have to be plugged in?
I was like, wait, I didn't order anything from here. I was like, you're doing Christmas shopping and you just kind of go a little off the rail. And I'm like, I don't remember ordering anything from here. And I opened it and I was like, this has art written all over it. I just knew it. All right. So sorry, I got a little off topic. I had to say something. Thank you, Art.
It looks great, how much I love it. Well, I'm glad you like it. I mean, I think you both look excellent in them. As I said, Carly, when it lit up, there was another one that I was really debating, but once that one lit up, I said, "Oh no, that's definitely Carly. That's glamorous." And then obviously with Daniela being Miss Christmas, it doesn't get better with her, Jesus, and Santa. So it, driving that, I think it's a minivan. But you know what I want to say, Carly, the hickory ham story. I can't tell you how many times my father would be sitting there in a chair and he'd look at my mother and he'd go, Catherine, I think I'm going to get up and mosey on over to the refrigerator and get me some of that there hickory ham. Hickory ham. I love it. I love it too. It's delicious. Although I'm actually thinking about becoming somewhat of a vegetarian this year and not eating so many meat. Yeah, well, it sounds crazy. This is actually the truth. Pigs are really a pretty intelligent animal. And, so I'm thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't love eating them so much. So I'm actually thinking about that. Not to be a downer, I know I think randomly, but I'm really thinking about that. Although I do have I have a big ham for Christmas already. Oh my Christmas tradition is I'm giving up ham just on New Year's Day. That's it. I'm going to do something else for the planet.
I feel like
I like it. Keep it going. As you know, I'm really into traditions and the way people celebrate things around the world. Now, unfortunately, for the NHL draft, the tradition in Spain of good luck wearing red underwear had the complete opposite effect on the Red Wings. And I feel bad. Although I'm not giving up on the red underwear. It is here. It actually hasn't moved in 7 months or whatever, how many months we've been doing the show. It's here. It's red. It fits very, very well. But since now that I've kind of mushroomed out a little bit, it probably fits a little too snugly. But with that said, I have not given up on Spain. I'm a big tennis fan, Rafael Nadal. I love the guy. So I'm really have immersed myself in Spanish culture. And, and I took Spanish many, many years ago. And for me, paella and all that kind of stuff, I think that's Spanish. I love all that stuff. I love everything about Spain. I love. I'm not a big fan of Portugal so much, but I love Spain. Love it. Spain is who I am. It's a defining part of me. The Spanish culture I embrace. So, what am I doing? What's my tradition? What am I up to? I know everybody's waiting. Did you know that in Spain, for good luck, at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, as we say goodbye to 1 year and we welcome in another, you stuff 12 grapes in your mouth for good luck. So this is what I'm going to be doing this New Year's Eve at the stroke of midnight. And I want you all to join me, all of you. I want you to, of course, don't give up on the red underwear. Do not give up on the red underwear. So be wearing red underwear and stuff 12 big, succulent, juicy grapes into your mouth. And then you say, and my Spanish is a little rough, so you say, Este es el año si podamos, which means this is the year. Yes, we can. I know I butchered it, but that's what I'm saying. Yes, we can. This is the year. Tigers and Red Wings for Detroit, for mankind, for all of us. Grapes, 12 grapes, stuff them in your mouth at the stroke of midnight. Do what the Spaniards do. And don't forget, whenever you have a low point in your life where you need some luck, you put on the red underwear, and eventually it'll work. That's my tradition.
Yeah. Well, I have one thing. Art, you can be all about the Spanish culture. You can learn everything you want. Leave the speaking to Carly. I watched a little bit of the show last week, which, by the way, you guys were fantastic. But Carly speaks a lot better than you do. So just leave it to her.
What are you talking about? I mean, yeah, I guess our Spanish is probably better.
That's what I'm saying. Spanish.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
Skian. He does a great job.
Right. Hey, I did an interview. I did an interview with Gregory Soto. Granted, I was only speaking English, but he kind of smirked a couple of times when I said some stuff.
Who cannot forget you are truly?
Oh yeah, that's true. If you have a mug like this, it's pretty easy to laugh at. I would imagine.
No,
yes.
It's your personality, Art. Come on now.
Thank you, Carly.
You have me wondering too, Art, if I can fit 12 grapes in my mouth at the same time. So that might be a challenge I try before New Year's Day.
So that'll be me tomorrow.
Well, it depends. You know, get the little Concord grapes. Aren't those the little real purple ones? Aren't they really small? Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to get the full effect, I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well try to go as big as you can, right? You have 12 big of those green juicy grapes. I guess the purple grapes too. They're pretty big, but you got to go those. You know, like when you walk into the store and you go to the fruit area, and then you see those huge big green grapes, and you're going, "Are those grapes or are those apples? What the hell is that stuff?"
All right, guys. Well, on that note, I bet you didn't know about that tradition. I bet you didn't know about all these traditions. But that does it for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook, an official gaming partner of the Detroit Tigers. Download the app and follow PointsBet USA on social media for more information. Carly, I hope you have some social media posts that aren't as strange as what we just talked about in Bet You Didn't Know.
I don't think anything is as strange as what we just talked about and Bet You Didn't Know. But so let's hop right into it. First up for the Detroit Red Wings, they put in the main ice over the weekend. I believe it was on Saturday. So check out this time lapse of them. It is the most visually appealing thing I have seen in a while. Watching them, look at that. I mean, isn't it beautiful? Put in the blue lines. I just love it. And then they have the winged wheel in the middle. So very exciting, very promising to see the ice in. I mean, we haven't seen that in how many months now? Since March? Ugh. Yeah, that was very pretty sight to see for me and, of course, all of Hockeytown. And then moving on to the Tigers after hearing the Detroit Red Wings will be playing, fingers crossed again, and be on the ice very soon. They post this. I don't know if you want to call it a jersey swap. Oh, they look at Detroit uniform swap. There we go. They did it for me. So you see Miggy here in a winged wheel baseball uniform and Anthony Mantha in a Detroit Tigers hockey uniform. You'll love to see the crossovers. Maybe we can get Miggy out on the ice. That would be pretty fun. see him try and skate. But that's all I have for Let's Socialize. Make sure you're sending in questions so we can answer them later on the show with the hashtag #WordOnWoodward. Daniela?
You know, Carly, I know those jerseys don't actually exist, but how cool would it be even if they did it for warm-ups or something?
Yeah, they need to. I don't know why. Like, we saw some Lions one as well. I believe that they did that. The Tigers did that earlier in the season, and Pistons. I mean, it would be so cool. Imagine a winged wheel on a football jersey. That would be pretty sick.
Yeah, or a Red Wings jersey in Honolulu blue and silver. They need to do something like that.
We need this. All right, let's talk to some people after the show. Get it done.
All right, we're on it. Thank you, Carly. As she mentioned, make sure you're sending in your questions, you guys, using the hashtag #WordOnWoodward, and we will get to them later in the show. We've still got a lot to get to. We're going to be joined by Hockey Hall of Famer Larry Murphy, and of course, a one-on-one with Art Regner and Tigers GM Al Avila, and then Red Wings General Manager Steve Yzerman is going to join us via press conference, so we'll go to that live at 2:30. But right now, we're going to get into Brush Street Beat, and we've got a very special guest that's joining us today, MLB Network's John Marosi. He's the best. He joins us all the time, and he's one of our favorite Word on Woodward guests. So, John, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's always great to see you.
Daniela, Art, great to be with you both. I do think, inspired by Art's New Year's tradition there, we will call the show today La Parábola en Woodward, the word on Woodward. Todas las entrevistas están en español. We're going to make sure that we do it all in Spanish here today. And I was impressed by Art's ability and his knowledge of Spanish culture. That was pretty good.
I love it.
Well, thank you, JP. I do appreciate it. My Spanish is a little rusty. Mr. Macio, who taught me Spanish in 7th and 8th grade, hopefully he's still kicking. I know that he would have been very, very proud of that last segment.
I'm just glad we got someone that can actually speak Spanish on the show right now, because we try sometimes.
Really?
I'm glad that you're here, John. We've got a lot to talk about.
Happy to translate whenever possible, and I was actually tuning up my my Italian to talk about the Swiss Italian players of the upcoming World Junior Hockey Championship. So we'll get to that one a little bit later on there. Lorenzo Canonica, he'll be later on in the show.
Wow!
All right, that sounds great. I do want to ask
that is
you.
So impressive.
Well, we're talking about holiday traditions, John. I know that you're home right now, and I'm hoping that you get to spend the holidays with your family. Do you guys have any traditions that you take part in every year?
So usually we do. Certainly, but my roots, as I alluded to, Italian and Polish as well here in the great state of Michigan. So usually we'll have a lot of family gatherings. This year we're staying home, of course. My wife working at the hospital still during the course of this time, so a little bit more of a home tradition here with just the 5 of us. But typically we would always hand around before Christmas dinner the opłatek, which our Polish American viewers will know. Of course, it's sort of like a wafer that you would pass around the table, and you break off a piece of it, and you say what you're thankful for. So I would say that the opłatek, that's in memory of my grandmother, who was Polish, and she gave that to our family as a great tradition. So we still maintain that today, the opłatek, and even my daughters, who are still pretty young, they understand what that's all about. So that's one of our key family traditions.
I love that, John. That's so cool. And, it is a little different this year. We're all celebrating the holidays a little bit different, but it's great to keep some traditions going and, of course, be thankful for what you do have. I do want to talk to you about some sports. You mentioned the World Juniors Championship, but we're going to start on the MLB. And it normally right now would be, let's call it hot stove season. We're going to call it lukewarm stove right now. There's not much going on in the MLB. So just kind of in general, when do you think things are going to pick up for some of these teams?
Well, it's a great question, Daniela, and we're still waiting to get some clarity on the season itself and when spring training begins. I think that's part of it, with teams not knowing fully how many games we'll have for sure, when spring training starts, when the regular season starts. These are all variables that will determine to teams how much money they're comfortable spending. And so I think with that uncertainty, we've already seen in recent years so many free agents sign after the new year. That's become the new mode for the more popular free agents out there. So from that standpoint, it won't be a surprise to see, of course, the Birmingham native DJ LeMahieu from Brother Rice High School. He's still out there. But this list is certainly the best group of free agents out there. You could probably add Tomoyuki Sugano out there from Japan, who's coming over probably in the early days of January. But it does not surprise me based on the way that we have seen the pace of the market move, Daniela, in recent years, that we are still waiting on so many players at the moment. But I think it's really accentuated by the uncertainty of just not knowing what crowds will look like in 2021. I think that's part of it. And until we see these really marquee free agents sign, you may see some of the middle tier players sign, as we already saw with James McCann, the former Tiger, going to the New York Mets. And I think from the Tigers standpoint, there probably are some 1 to 2 year pitchers. A Taiwan Walker, for example, maybe he could be in the Tigers price range, and someone that would sign a 2 year deal or thereabouts. I think that's probably the area that could move first. But I think until Trevor Bauer signs, a lot of the other top end free agent starting pitchers probably won't sign yet either.
John, you bring up a really interesting point. And, since this is the lukewarm stove league, I guess is what we're calling it right now, does that actually maybe play into the Tigers' hands a little bit, where the longer these guys are out there, that maybe their price might drop a little bit, and that Al Avila, who said, I'm not in for quick fixes, we're in for the long haul, that he could be at least tempted to maybe dip his toe into the big boy free agent water?
Well, I think it's possible, Art, and the Tigers, to me, could go in any number of different directions here. I think that Al is generally right, that obviously if you're going to bring in someone, you'd rather sign them for multiple years. Almost the same thing we've heard Steve Yzerman say, that you want to, if he's a really foundational piece, you want to sign him for multiple years, and that way you know that he's going to be part of the next good team in Detroit. I think that makes a lot of sense from the Tigers' perspective. But it's also, to your point, Art, you wonder which of the marquee free agents will look at the Tigers now and say, if you're a George Springer or a Bauer or a LeMahieu or a Real Muto, is this a team that can win the World Series right away? And I think that's part of the calculation that players have right now. I do think the Tigers are in a pretty good position with respect to payroll. Outside of Miguel Cabrera's money, there's not really a lot of substantial contracts that would preclude them from pursuing other players. So when they are in the mode to be competing for championships annually again, there's going to be the capacity, I believe, to add some significant star talent here in the years to come. And I think one of the other things that I'd mentioned too, Art and Daniela, is the coaching staff. This is a very good coaching staff. And it starts with A.J. Hinch, Chris Fetter, George Lombard, Chip Hale, people that are very, very well known, Jose Cruz Jr., very, very well known around the game with a lot of contacts. And I think that when you consider recruiting and convincing a player that, hey, amid all the uncertainty, here are some great things about playing in Detroit right now. Here's the heritage of the winning that went on here for so many years during the last decade, and why this has become such a great place to play for so long. I think you've got different players and different people on that list there with a lot of different contacts around the game. You've got guys that have been in the National League, American League. AJ's managed. George Lombard just won a championship. Chris Fetter's been in college baseball and really understands the young pitcher. And I think if you're a pitcher who needs to sort of have a bit of a workshop, maybe you were non-tendered or cut loose by your other organization, and you're looking to have a bit of a reboot for your career, Chris Fetter is a great pitching coach to do that with. I really think the strength of this staff, the Tigers right now, I believe on this day, have one of the best coaching staffs in baseball. And that, I believe, when you consider where we're at with a lot of uncertainty in the industry, go with people who you know that you can trust, who will teach you the game, who will make you a better player, and really help you maximize your years in the game. Because listen, 2021, you've got a CBA to be negotiated after that coming season. There is a lot of uncertainty, and I think there's value in going to people that you know and people who are going to help you perform now, because that is what ultimately is going to be your salvation now in the years to come. If you perform well, if you have the talent, eventually you'll get paid. And in the midst of all this turbulence, going with great instructors, I think, is the way to go for free agents right now.
That's a great point. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who the Tigers can get to want to come here, because that's a big thing about it. And I think you're right. The coaches are a very big draw at this point in time. One thing I do want to ask you about, John, is that we got the news over the weekend that Alex Fiedo will undergo Tommy John surgery. And obviously that means he will be out for a full season. And he's a pitcher that we were really looking forward to seeing in the major leagues and making his MLB debut with the Tigers. What do you see, or I guess I should say, how do you see this impacting the Tigers pitching staff for the coming season?
Yeah, Danielle, I don't think that Fiedo had entered or would have entered camp this year as being someone with a really inside track on getting a rotation spot right now. I think he was probably on track to be maybe a later season call up. I mean, there was some thought, would he end up being a bullpen guy down the line? And maybe some of the inconsistencies that we saw in his performance leading up to now could be explained by the fact that he now is going to have Tommy John surgery. So I think it's unfortunate, obviously, for him to miss the entire year. And I think it represents a pretty hard reset in his career. He comes back, and even then 2022 will be probably a year that has maybe some innings limits and restrictions. And by then, the Tigers will probably be in a very different competitive state. I mean, by 2022, I think this is going to be a team that's in a playoff contention mode by then. And so at that point in time, is he a bullpen option, a multi-inning guy out of the pen whose innings they're going to watch carefully? That's one possible school of thought. But certainly it's a difficult bit of news for the Tigers, but they also will still show up to spring training this year with a lot of really appealing younger rotation possibilities. Of course, Mize and Skubal and Manning. I think that the ability, and of course Manning had his own injury issues here in the last year. I think the Tigers' future will depend in large part on how Chris Fetter, as a young pitching coach, someone who's used to working with college pitchers, really gets the most out of these young rotation pitchers for years to come. And I think that's going to be the key question. That will determine if the Tigers are an average team or a very good team in the years to come. What can Mize do? What can Skubal do? What can Manning do once Fiedo is healthy? What is he able to do? Are there some surprises that Chris and the pitching group are able to really get the most out of in the minor leagues? That, to me, is going to be the key deciding factor for this team going forward. And I think that while Fiedo missing 2021 is certainly a setback, he should be able to be back on the mound in a role that's meaningful, whether it's a multi-inning reliever or a starter, by the time that 2022 trade deadline, first half of the season rolls around, because I think that's when the Tigers need to have their arms really marshaled together when they've got a chance to have, I think, a very competitive team by that season.
JP, I know we're running out of time, and I want to get to the World Juniors because I know you're going to be covering that. But I have to ask you this: is there something with the evolution of the mechanics of pitching that has made Tommy John surgery almost prevalent in today's game? Every time I turn around, whether it's a Tiger prospect, someone is getting Tommy John surgery in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think Jeff Passan's book, The Arm, is on my shelf somewhere. My friend Jeff Passan wrote that great book about the detail. So we'd probably have to I'd have to read the book to you during the course of the show for us to fully answer that question and do it justice. But I think the short answer is the sports specialization, the velocity on pitchers that we see being utilized, and the emphasis on velocity by scouts, by the industry, and then specializing in one sport and really training yourself to throw hard. The human body maybe is not meant to throw 103 miles an hour. And I think that as we see pitchers trying to strive for that, they break down, whether it's Noah Syndergaard, whether it's anybody else. Justin Verlander, of course, took him 16, 17 years of pro ball before that ended up happening. So I think it is a lot to ask of your body to do it. And you see some pitchers get it later, some pitchers get it earlier. And I do think that the days certainly of Mickey Lolich throwing 360 innings are gone. But again, Mickey Lolich wasn't throwing 100 miles an hour. So it really sort of depends on what is valued in the game, the power in the game, both at the plate and on the mound. It makes this a maximum effort sport right now. It's why you see so many strikeouts and also so many home runs. And the notion of like the 1980s Cardinals and Royals teams, we just don't see that anymore, where the ball's put in play a lot, hit and run, moving the runner, doubles, singles. It's not the way the game is played at the moment. And I think at some level it's unfortunate. And one of the reasons why it's unfortunate is it has resulted in this chase for velocity, which the human body and human arm can only withstand for so long.
It's interesting the way that the surgery has progressed, and we wish Alex Fiedo the best, of course. And John, as Art mentioned, we do want to talk to you about World Juniors. So we're going to jump into that now. And we know that you will be covering it. And as everything is a little strange this year, I'm sure covering the World Juniors is going to be a little different for you. So right now you're at home. Tell us about how you will be covering and what your role is going to be throughout this process.
Well, thanks, Danielle, for the question, and to Art as well. So I work, most of my year, about 90% is for MLB Network. And then because MLB Network and NHL Network are under the same roof, they're teammates there in New Jersey, I will occasionally be loaned to the NHL Network side. And this is one of those times a year with the World Juniors. And my role is largely on the feature side, which I really enjoy because you really get a chance to tell the stories of these 18, 19-year-old hockey players, some of whom have already been drafted, and then some, like Maddie Beniers, who's a freshman at U of M, this is his draft year coming up. Actually, he's the one first-time draft-eligible player on the team for the World Juniors for Team USA. And actually his interesting story for him, he was going to go to Harvard and play at Harvard, but Harvard and the Ivy League canceled their winter sports season. So late in the summer, unsure of what he was going to do in his draft year, Maddie Beniers, who's from Hingham, Massachusetts, enrolls at Michigan. So he had known Chris Mayotte, who was one of the assistant coaches at Michigan going back years, and so that was his comfortable spot. He had played in Michigan for the National Team Development Program, and so Maddie really found that comfort level in Ann Arbor. He has had a tremendous camp so far in Edmonton there with Team USA. So we did a piece on him last week about his family. His mom, actually, Christine, was a performer on Broadway after graduating with an engineering degree from Cornell. So she gets an engineering degree from one of the great universities in our country and goes to New York and performs on Broadway. So it's that poise, I would say, that poise and the singing. And we heard some of Art's performance earlier on in the show. I think the Beniers family, Danielle, is probably a little better, if Art can close his ears, probably a little better than Art in terms of the performance aspect of things, and also maybe on the ice as well. But Art, I appreciate your performance and the festive spirit, my friend, and you can celebrate the holidays by watching Maddie Beniers play on NHL Network here during the course of the next couple of weeks there for Team USA.
Well, he's not the first one, even though maybe it wasn't his choice that chose Michigan over Harvard. I mean, I did too. So, that's just the way it goes.
There you go.
but with that said, I final question. Obviously, I'm looking at Team Sweden. I know they're under some sort of COVID protocol along with Team Germany right now. They won't be playing preseason games. And it pains me to say this because Sweden's the team I'm going to look at. I'm rooting, obviously, my heart's always with Team USA. But at the end of the day, they're in a bubble. They're in Edmonton. Is anybody going to be able to slow down the Canadians? Team Canada is just stacked.
They are, and Canada enters as the favorites. I'm probably going to pick the U.S. because I really believe that they're on talent. Probably the third most talented team there is the U.S. But I think Nate Lehman, the head coach, is going to find a way to get the best level performance out of them. I think there's still a lot of forward talent coming back for the U.S. Zegras, Turcotte, Caulfield, Kaliev as well from the OHL. Very good group there. But with Canada, you've got Kirby Dach, who, of course, we already saw in the NHL with Chicago. I mean, for him to come back and be able to play in this tournament is pretty incredible. Just the amount of depth that they've got there right now. Quinn's a great player as well. On the back end, Drysdale, of course. Byram on the back end, really good elite-level defenseman. So I think overall, Canada has the best team, but the U.S., with Spencer Knight, might have the best goaltender. And this is a tournament where if your goaltender can really stand out, I think that the consensus is that Knight is either number one or number two goaltender in the entire tournament with a very talented group there. I'm going to go for the U.S. with a surprise there to find a way to get in there. And finally, they're talking about different COVID protocols because of Team USA losing some players there late, not able to come to the camp. Hunter Skinner comes into the camp. He's from Pinckney, Michigan. He was at his house in Pinckney, and he gets the phone call from John Van Briesbroek, of course, the Detroit native, saying, "Hey, we need to call you into camp here. We had some roster changes." So Hunter gets up there in Pinckney, goes down to Plymouth, goes to camp, and makes the team. So you've got a guy from Pinckney who's called in off his couch there in the final days of camp there to join Team USA. So that could be a great story if you see him score a goal for the Americas in the tournament.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and here we are. We're just going to be sitting on our couch. I'm not going to get a call to go try out for the World Juniors. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And while you're covering the World Juniors, make sure you keep your eye on our Red Wings prospects.
I certainly will. Lucas Raymond, I'm expecting a big tournament from him.
We are too.
Happy holidays, John. Thank you.
Yes. Happy holidays,
Thanks
John.
so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat right here on The Word on Woodward. Always great to hear from John. Thank you again for joining us, and good luck covering the World Juniors Championship Tournament. And now we're going to move in to Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And we've got another great guest joining us, you guys. This show, I really told you, it's a spectacular one. I was not lying. It's Hall of Famer Larry Murphy joining us again. Larry, we've got some NHL hockey to talk about. The season is starting January 13th. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm excited. I think any hockey fan out there, and especially for Wings fan, boy, what, 10 months it's going to be from the time the Wings played their last game until we see them again on the 13th. So I'm excited as anybody. And of course, that there's a lot of questions coming into camp. But what's this Wings team going to be all about, Daniela?
I'm not sure, Larry. We still got to figure that part out, but I think it's going to be really interesting. And we're going to ask you a ton of hockey questions, but we're asking all of our guests today to tell us one holiday tradition that they take part in with their family. So come on, you got to give us one.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot. I mean, I definitely tradition, and of course, unfortunately this year, that big Christmas dinner table is not going to be. But I don't know. I guess, I'm trying to think of anything out of the norm. Open gifts at Christmas morning, maybe a little Christmas punch the night before. But that's about as far as I can take that question, Danielle. Boy, I gotta do my homework. I gotta be ready next time.
That's okay. Spending time with the family. That's good enough. That's it right there.
Well, I know Art. I mean, I'm sure I know Art's got some probably pretty incredible traditions. To be part of that would be very enjoyable, and I guess adult beverage is probably part of that one.
well, there's no doubt about it. The old spiked eggnog. I just want to say I've known Larry a long time. He is giving you the G-rated version of his Christmas traditions, and thank you very much, there, Larry. I think we all appreciate that. But all kidding aside, what I really want to ask you about, looking at this, is that the Red Wings get a whole whopping 3 extra days of training camp. I mean, is that a farce? Is that a joke? Do they really? Would you have liked to see them get more, or is that about right?
Oh, it's a big disappointment for those 7 teams. As I said, it's been 10 months since they played their last game, and they're hoping, and the league was hoping too, to give the teams, including the Red Wings, those 7 extra days before camp, just to try to level the playing field, because the other teams had played in the bubble and their season had run much longer. So unfortunate situation for the Wings. They'll take the 3 days. They're going to definitely Jeff Blashill. I guarantee you, down to the minute, he's got this camp ready, exactly what the teams want to achieve. And the big thing, Art, I'd say job number 1 is try to make it as intense and as competitive as possible, because there's no preseason games. You're going right into it. And with the shortened season, you've got to get out of the gate fast. So I know the coaching staff is trying to prepare drills. You're going to see some scrimmaging. But the goal is going to be intensity. The team has skated since the end of November at Little Caesars Arena. They've been on the ice, but to replicate intensity, that's difficult. And that's what's going to be job number 1, I believe, for Jeff Blashill, besides obviously evaluating the roster, is to do that in order to get this team ready.
You mentioned the roster, Larry. It's going to be a little bit different this year in the fact that they can have 26 players on their roster as opposed to 23. And then, of course, the 4-man taxi squad. I, for one, am excited to see which of our younger players, our prospects, get the opportunity to be either on that taxi squad or that take those last 3 roster spots. Do you think this is going to be an advantage for some of the guys that would have otherwise probably played in Grand Rapids?
Well, yeah, the evaluation period is going to run right into the season. Without the preseason game, of course, you're only going to be able to dress 20 players for that first game. But you're going to have, as Daniela, as you point out, we're going to have that taxi squad. We're going to have a lot of bodies around. So there's going to be young players like Chalowski. I mean, that's going to give him a good opportunity through practice. They're going to try to get him in games. Is this the breakthrough season for him? And this is an opportunity for their young guys. Rasmussen, I mean, this is another guy. I mean, maybe a chance to play. It's not, they're going to get into the season on the roster. This expanded roster is going to allow the Wings to keep the young players with them. They're going to practice with the squad, but the key is, though, these guys, Chalowski this season, he's got to establish himself as an everyday player, and he's going to have a good opportunity, I believe, throughout this season to achieve that goal.
Larry, when we originally talked a couple of shows ago when you were on, we talked about the division. And at that time, Minnesota was part of the Central Division. Unfortunately, I guess there was a lot of complaining. Things were done. And now we have Dallas in the Red Wings division. Minnesota is out. And so when you look at this division, I mean, it's pretty competitive. Obviously, they're all teams that were in the bubble except for the Red Wings. I know in a 56-game schedule, if you get out strong, and much like the Tigers, when they ended up playing 58 games out of a 60-game schedule, that, hey, why not the Tigers, we were saying. I look at this division, and I'd love to say why not the Red Wings, but this looks like a pretty tough chore for the Red Wings, this division.
It's going to be tough. I think you got to look at obviously you got to look at Tampa as a shoe-in. I would put Dallas in that category, maybe even Carolina. And boy, it gets real competitive after that. I mean, look at the teams they're going to have to get by. I think they're going to have to be ahead of the Panthers, going to have to be ahead of the Predators. I think the Hawks is very doable. That's a team that I think the Wings are definitely going to leapfrog this season. The Blue Jackets, a blue-collar, tough team out there. They've got to get ahead of them. So yeah, their work is cut out for them. And I think, yes, goal number one is to make the playoffs. And that's, of course, that would be fantastic for the franchise. But I think you're looking at the secondary goal is be in the race right to the end. Play those meaningful games. I'm a firm believer that's how you develop players, is have them playing in games where there's something on the line. Once the team is out of the playoff picture, the pressure is gone from that team. And I just don't think you get the advantage of the competition, the hard, grinding, important games. And I want to see the Wings play right through this 56-game schedule where they're still in the hunt and every game means something.
Larry, we had Mickey Redmond on the show earlier. He sat down with Carly, and I heard him say that, yes, the division is tough. It's going to be tough. Really, any of the divisions would have been tough. But you've got to play the best to be the best. So even if the Red Wings don't end up in the top four, they don't end up in the playoffs, what advantages will they have for seeing these top teams 8 times this season?
Well, yeah, of course, competition rises your level of play. It's much better for a team to play against teams better than them than are worse than them, because you're right on, Danielle. I mean, that's something that pulls you towards. You see just by playing against these top teams, by them playing against Tampa, they're going to see what it takes to be a Stanley Cup champion, and you're going to learn by that experience. So yeah, you playing strong teams. It also gives the Steve Yzerman an opportunity to evaluate players. You're playing against the best. I mean, how does guys hold up? How's a guy, you throw any name out, Robbie Fabry, or even we talked about Chalowski. It's like, how do they hold up against pressure? And that's the true evaluating form. And that's the best thing you want, that measuring stick, so to speak. What's it going to take to be at the top echelon of the National Hockey League? And of course, Mickey's spot on as usual. I mean, how do you do that? Well, you play against the top teams.
Larry, you said something really, really interesting, that you hope the Red Wings are playing meaningful games, 1 through 56, because when you're out of it, and, we always hear when a team is mathematically eliminated, well, they're playing for next year or to impress the coach and all that kind of stuff. You're a Hall of Fame hockey player. You've been on Stanley Cup winning teams, and I'm sure you've been on a couple not so competitive teams over the year. What is that room like? How do you get yourself motivated to play if you're out of it? I mean, is it an individual thing? Does Larry Murphy stand up in the room and give the old college cheer and let's go, boys, win this one for us? I mean, what happens?
Hey, Art, you just set me up to blow my own horn with that question. I only missed the playoff one time, so I wasn't really ever really in that situation. I guess played 20 years, missed the playoffs once. So that's a question, Art. I just don't know. I just know what that's all about. But yeah, it's obviously you character guys. I mean, you guys, yeah, and it's true. You play for the next year. You play for pride, without a doubt. I mean, these guys. It's not like they shut it down, but it's just the importance of the games no longer have that meaning, and I think you lose something when that's the case. But yeah, these guys, last year, I mean, look at the Wings, what they went through, the trials and tribulations. And I wouldn't say anybody on that team quit. I mean, their confidence really took a hit, and they got punched in the gut many times, and it knocked them down. But there was no quit. I mean, they got back up and tried to be the best they can. So, I mean, I was proud of the team in an unfortunate situation where they're outmatched badly in a lot of games. I thought they held themselves well in that situation, but you know, they're tired of that now. And a guy, you know, you could just see it wears on their face. Guys like Larkin and Bertuzzi and Hronek. I mean, these guys, I mean, it just grinded away at them. So they want to get out of that situation desperately, and they're going to be motivated, and they're going to put best foot forward this coming season.
Another interesting thing about this season, this was actually a mailbag question that a fan submitted earlier in the show. And I thought it was really interesting point, actually, that we have some high-end prospects that are loaned in Sweden right now. So they're playing in the Swedish Hockey League, but come mid NHL season, which could be, you know, end of March, beginning of April, some of these guys might be available to come back to the United States and play. Do you think there's a chance we could see guys like Moritz Seider and Joe Veleno in a Red Wings uniform come the end of the season?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. And especially looking at Seider, I mean, he's been very competitive in the Swedish league. He's a guy that plays a lot of the time on the top pairing. He's a guy that I mean, this has worked out very well. A tough situation with COVID and leagues canceling. Yzerman was able to find this guy a team in Sweden to play. A Swedish league is very competitive, and it's a great progression for him moving up to the NHL level. And I got to think, I mean, of course, it's going to be influenced by how far his team goes in the playoffs in the Swedish league, but I gotta assume, and I think it's a safe bet from the day he's done in Sweden, he's going to be back here on the Red Wings, whether he fits into the taxi squad or he's an everyday player. He's going to be at the Red Wings, and I think it's safe to say, that from this moment on, after he's finished with his run in the Swedish Hockey League, Mo Seider is going to be a Red Wing from here on out.
I couldn't agree with you more, Larry. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I see him coming back from Sweden and stepping right into the Red Wings lineup. Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, a lot of factors depending on, you know, exactly, you know, remember the elephant in the room is COVID-19. So let's see where we're at, you know, in the season and outbreaks and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to sound, you know, like putting a death knell into everything, because I'm really not, but we have to be realistic as well. But, you know, I talked to Joe Veleno. He just did another blog for us in our blog series, Taking Flight, at DetroitRedWings.com. And I was talking to him in Sweden, and he quite frankly told me, I don't know what's next for me. I know I'm going to win, because Malmo isn't going to make the playoffs, I guess. So he comes back in March. Does he go into the taxi squad? I would assume he does. But if the AHL season's going and they're playing a full schedule, maybe they put him over there and let him perfect his craft even more. I guess my question for you is about the World Junior Tournament, Larry. Now, I know probably deep down you're rooting for that Canadian team, but I would imagine that, like most of us, you have to have one eye peeled on Team Sweden, because there's so many Red Wing prospects on that team.
Well, yeah, you look at the roster, so yeah, they're going to be watched very closely. I guarantee that. Well, they're going to watch every World Junior game. I'm speaking of the scouting staff of the Wings, but boy, the Sweden one, there's big circles around every game, and of course, Lucas Raymond is the top name of that list, and that's another guy. Boy, when they're done, when his season's done in Sweden, what do the Wings do with him? I mean, he could really push himself forward. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Raymond's a guy that you probably would look at next season as being his first opportunity to play in the National Hockey League. But I mean, he's not a stretch to make the Wings next season. So they're going to watch him closely, and that bodes well. It shows how well the Wings have drafted when you've got that many players playing in the World Junior Tournament, and you've got the best. It's such a scouting smorgasbord, the World Junior Tournament, because you've got all the best kids that 18, 19 years old playing together, and you find out that's the best of the best. You find out what these guys have, and Lucas Raymond's a guy that's, boy, he's very, I'd call him very courageous, he's not a guy that's going to drop the gloves, of course, but he's a guy that never gets discouraged. He's willing to go to the heavy traffic zone, and with his skill, I mean, that's the combination you want, and that's the type of attributes that really transition well into the National Hockey. I firmly believe, it's easy for me to say, firmly believe that the two attributes you have is skill And that includes, skating, passing, shooting, and +2, determination and the ability not to let your game get derailed. And it's not, you don't have to be a guy out there that runs bodies over, but you have to be a guy that no one discourages you from going into those heavy traffic areas. And no one discourages you from taking that hit to make the play. And Raymond's the type of guy that fits that void or fits that role.
Larry, first of all, I just want to say I love all your Santas in the background there. The varied Santas, very, very nice decor, very festive, very, very holiday. And I think that everybody in these mirror looks, your Christmas pillow there through the mirror on the chair. Yeah. I mean,
nothing is there by accident. Everything has been positioned accordingly with reason. I didn't take any chances at all. So there's a story behind every card that you see behind me. And I don't have the big plastic Santa, but still, I think it's pretty festive.
Well, you got to be in with the old man to get one of these babies behind me. But that's why you're a Hall of Famer. Very meticulous. Everything's planned. Your course of action. But I just wanted to say this really quickly. We talked to Danielle, and I had the pleasure of talking to Lucas Raymond from Sweden the day the Red Wings drafted him. And we asked him, when do you expect to be a Red Wing? And he basically said 2021. He's expecting to make the team next season. You got to love that.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly. That's his tenacity and his drive. Yeah, the last thing you want is a guy that gets picked and it comes with the mindset, maybe I'll be ready for the National Hockey League in a couple of years. You want guys, some guys are more boisterous than others, and Raymond's a guy that speaks his mind. When you pick these young kids, you want them to believe that they're ready next season to play in the National Hockey League. It might not happen, probably won't happen, but you want guys that are determined and feel like they're of the skill level that they can jump right in. And the opportunity is here with the Wings. This is a team that's struggling, that's rebuilding. Boy, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think Raymond's a smart kid. He realizes, boy, if I do my job, I play at the level I can play at. Hey, I'm going to be in the National Hockey League before you know it. And I love it. And I love his determination. And I'm going to watch him very closely, of course, in this World Junior tournament and see how he progresses. I'm hoping he comes out as one of the best players in the tournament.
I think we're going to see a common trend here as Steve Yzerman gets to draft these guys that I just feel like he wouldn't draft somebody that didn't have that mindset. You know what I mean? So they're going to have the mindset that I'm going to make it to the NHL, my first opportunity that I get, whether the cards fall that way or not. But that mindset is something that I think the Red Wings actually look for when they're drafting players.
Oh, yeah, Danielle, spot on. That's Steve Yzerman. That's probably the attribute number one that he looks for is guys with the determination. Draft a guy, there's a lot of kids out there that play with a lot of determination, just don't have the skill set. But yeah, Steve wants a guy, a leader, a guy that's going to step forward. You look at guys that the Wings have drafted in the past that coming to fruition. You look at Dylan Larkin. That's a guy that's soon to be captain. He's a guy that's shown that, boy, he's going to be the best player out there. He's not happy unless he is the best player out there. And he wants the team to win. And he takes it upon his shoulders that, hey, I need to be at my best and I can be at my best. And that's where the success of the team's going to come from. And yeah, that's the type of guys that the scouting staff for the Red Wings look for.
Definitely. Well, Larry, unfortunately, we are out of time for today, but I hope you get your rest over this holiday right here, because next week we're going to be hitting the ground hard with training, and then the season's going to start. So you better rest up.
Thanks, Daniela. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, I'm sure. And you guys have been talking it every day. You guys must be just chomping at the bit to see the Wings back out at Little Caesars Arena.
We are.
Hey,
really
Larry, have an eggnog for me, my friend, and make sure it's spiced just properly.
Hey, yeah, wink, wink. I know what you mean by spice, too.
Okay, we're all enjoying an eggnog again, Larry. Thank you so much for joining us. And a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Believe it or not, we still have a lot of exciting stuff coming up in today's edition of The Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Later, we are going to go live to Steve Yzerman's press conference where he's going to address the media at 2:30. But right now, we're going to check in with our other general manager. Art Regner sat down with Al Avila.
Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite, and let's get right to it. Our last guest of the year for 2020. I don't know if he's going to think that's a great thing or not, but it's Tigers general manager Al Avila joins us. Al, thanks for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure to be on here, especially at Christmas time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's where I want to begin, Al. I mean, I've never, which is kind of odd, over my years through Detroit media, I've never talked to you. I knew Dave really, really well and a lot of the GMs, but I'm really looking forward to this. This is the first time, and I have developed this sense that you are a gregarious, fun-loving human being. Your interviews, you're upbeat no matter what's going on. I mean, Al Avila is the man. I mean, truly. So I'm kind of wondering, I would imagine that Al Avila this time of year must have some sort of Christmas tradition, whether it be, a favorite holiday movie, or you're picking out the Christmas goose, or spiking the eggnog, or singing carols around the fireplace. I mean, is baking Al's special cookies, or your casserole? I mean, what does Al Avila, what are you known for this time of year?
Well, there's a few things. Favorite movie, it's A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and I watch every version of it during the holidays. So that's always been my best and my favorite, should I say? And as far as other stuff, really, since my kids were very little and now they're in their 30s, my wife has always done Christmas cookies with the kids. And so as they grew up and they got into their 20s and 30s, we still had Christmas cookies, even as adults. But then, of course, now we have grandchildren. So making Christmas cookies is a big part of the holidays for us around Christmas time. So those are the two main things. But also at home for Christmas itself, and we do this on Christmas Eve, we roast a pig, a whole entire pig. Usually in the backyard.
Wow. Well, one of these days, Al, you're gonna have somebody just like show up unannounced, and it's gonna be me, because a roasted pig sounds delicious. And Christmas Carol is one of my favorite. Now, we're right around the same age, so I don't know what I was really into as a kid, and I watched them all too. Whether it's Alastair Sims or Reginald Owens as Ebenezer Scrooge and all the old ones, but I loved Mr. Magoo's A Christmas Carol. Have you ever seen that one where, a lot of odd songs and stuff, but that's still one of my all-time favorites. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen them all, believe me. And my wife and I, and sometimes depending on who's here, they have to watch because that's all I watch during the time, especially the last week before going into the Christmas time.
Al, let's turn to some baseball now, because I can go on about the holidays and Christmas forever. Before we talk about this year and what you've done in the offseason and looking forward to next season, you had 58 games this season, and it was kind of fun. I mean, it was exciting. My motto was, why not the Tigers? But when you look back now, and you've had a little bit of time, what was the most encouraging thing of that 58-game season where, not that it gave you validation that I'm on the right track, but something that, hey, this is what we have. We're building. We have a good foundation here. What gave you pause to think, yep, it's starting to come together?
Well, quite frankly, it was a very challenging season, and for us, I think one of the things that I felt good about was how the players all came together and worked hard to make it work. In other words, the safety measures that they went through, the protocols, they were really good at it, and their effort and their desire to continue to play. As far as our future and our foundation, we had guys that we had just drafted, like Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green in our alternate training camp in Toledo. amongst other players that we had there, they did very well, and they were facing pitching that were upper tier, AAA, and to some degree big league pitching, where in a normal year they would have probably been playing at a much lower level. So those were encouraging signs. Also bringing up guys like Isaac Paredes, Willie Castro, having them do well, and particularly Willie Castro, who had a chance to be actually was a nominee for Rookie of the Year, did very well. So those were encouraging factors. Having Casey Mize and some of the other guys getting experience also is a big thing for us as we move forward. So those are some of the things that I feel that put us in a better position.
Do you know when a player's ready? Or do you have to almost wait until they get to the major league level to find out if they have the mettle to make it? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but everybody wants, people want, my motto, unleash the torque. I want to see torque in a Tiger uniform yesterday. I know that's not possible. Skubal came up and did well. Casey, I know Casey's going to rebound and have a great year. But do you have an individual criteria when you know a player's ready, when you go to AJ or in the past Gardy and say, it's time for so-and-so to come up?
Yeah, the decisions to bring up a player, sometimes are determined by the circumstances that you're in. I can tell you, many years ago when we first brought up Buck Farmer, it was out of necessity. And so sometimes you bring a player up just because out of necessity. This year, you saw a lot of players being brought up across the league from A-ball, and it was just the necessity for pitching in particular. And in some cases, because of the virus, you saw position players being brought up quite early. For us, it was Isaac Paredes that we brought up rather early in this case. But ideally, what you would like to do is see a player do very well, if not dominant, at each level that he's played, from A-ball to AA to AAA to the big leagues. In the past, we've brought up players straight from AA because we felt that they've dominated that league and they can skip the AAA level. But those are far and few in between. So ideally, we would like them to see have a full season of at bats, a full season of innings pitched at the highest level, and do very well before we bring them up. It's not always the case, and even when you do that, sometimes obviously the player is going to struggle at the beginning because there is a major adjustment between AAA and the big leagues, and so it's a process. Not everybody comes up and has success right away. And even some people that do, then usually have a setback because the league adjusts to them and then they got to adjust back. So it is a process that takes a while. And but the good ones stick. The good ones, even though they might have to come up and down, once they come up at a certain level, the good ones, they stick and they do well. A good example was when we had Porcello. Porcello was brought up from kind of early, and then we had to send him back, and then he came back. Verlander, when he came up, struggled. When we had Scherzer at the beginning, struggled. But then they found their way, and they became star players. And so, that's kind of really the norm, to tell you the truth. So we've got some players that are close. Obviously, last year was a very challenging year because we didn't have a full season of minor leagues, but we feel they got some work in. This year with, obviously if we have some good luck here, we'll have a good full season of the minor leagues and get them back on track. And hopefully we'll see them at the big leagues soon.
Al, that leads me to that question then, because I guess there's a debate. Did last year stunt the development of some of these high-end prospects that the Tigers have?
Well, the players that were at the alternate training site in Toledo did have an advantage. that they were able to play some games and practice and get really some high level one-on-one instruction, because it was a smaller group. So I would say that group, had some development, and it was good for them. And in particular, like I mentioned before, and for the hitters, they were facing some upper level pitching that I felt was good for them in their experience. But overall, it's not the same as having a full season and getting them, 500 at bats or 130, 140 innings under their belt pitched. So, and then of course, the majority of the players in the minor leagues did not play at all. They were at home doing all what they could do. Luckily for us, we kept our staff, our minor league staff, intact. They were in touch with our players on a regular basis, giving them workout information, as far as strength and conditioning, training, and even to some degree where if a player had some baseball, be able to do some baseball activities, we were giving them instruction, obviously virtually, that they can follow on their own. So that was the best we can do, and for at the very least, they stayed in shape. Some of these guys got even stronger, and we feel that they'll be ready to go this coming spring.
Yeah, I know you've gone on record and saying you're not looking for quick fixes. I know the free agent market is a little slow right now, but how difficult is it for you not to be tempted to go out and spend big bucks on a player that could help the Tigers, but there is some risk involved?
Well, it's really tough because we're just coming back from, like you mentioned, a 58. It was a 60-game schedule. We only played 58 games because of the virus. But you come from 58 games with no fans in the stadium. Obviously, it was devastating to the industry, not just to the Tigers, as far as the economics of it. And then we're going into a future that is really unknown right now, if there's going to be people in the stands, and if there are, how many are going to be allowed. The virus is still an issue. Now, luckily, it looks like we have a vaccine, and hopefully things will get better. I am very optimistic that it's going to be better as we move into the summer. So we're excited for the start of spring training and the season. But with all the uncertainties from a financial perspective, the economics of the game, this is probably not the best time to be making a big splash. On top of that, we're building here for sustainability, not for a quick one-time fix. And hey, let's just go out there and see what we can do this year. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself next year trying to trade away those players with those salaries. So what we're trying to do here is build gradually and build it for long-term sustainability. And eventually, build a championship organization, not just let's say a one-time thing. So that's really have been our goal from day one. That's why it's been such a painful process. But it will get better sooner than later. Now, obviously, we're going to try to make steps as we go along, and the team will definitely be improving this year, and then next year, obviously, we feel that we can make a bigger step, and the year after that, even a bigger step.
What areas are you hoping to address this year, without obviously naming players, through free agency and maybe even possible trades?
Yeah. Well, right now, the outlook for us is we've got Jamer Candelario coming back from a good season. We're very encouraged about that. We feel that, obviously he's on his way to become a really good everyday player for us. He can play either first or third base. Right now we got Willie Castro coming back from a very good season also. Like I said, he was a candidate for Rookie of the Year. I'm talking to AJ. He's going to give him the opportunity to establish himself at shortstop. We got Nico Goodwin coming back, who was a finalist for the Gold Glove, that can play anywhere, any position really, in the infield or the outfield. Not sure yet if AJ's going to use him as a super utility guy, or is he going to maybe have him in one position. Right now, in talking to AJ, probably going to move him around a little bit. We got Daz Cameron, that last year we brought him up and actually started to do well towards the end. shame that we didn't have a full season for him, but we feel that he could be on his way. Jacoby Jones is coming back from his injury at center field, and we got Victor Reyes. And then we've got a lot of other young players that we're going to give opportunities to. But in saying that, ideally, we would like to get a good hitter to play maybe one of the corner outfield positions. The outfield position has been an area of weakness for us from an offensive perspective. So maybe if we can get a corner outfielder that could, boost our offensive production there, and possibly, two hitters, depending on how things shake out here at the end. And also with our pitching, we've got the makings for a rotation, led by Boyd and Turnbull and Michael Fulmer. Last year we brought up Schoolboy and Mize, but ideally we'd like to bring in at least one starting pitcher to protect us, if not two. But right now the pitching market is really kind of weak, I would say. But and so if maybe it's one starter, one reliever, and we'll just have to see how the rest of the winter shakes out. And then at the end, if we're able to, and I'm not sure if we will be able to, maybe bring in a more veteran catcher to kind of stabilize ourselves behind the plate. So these are some of the areas that we feel that we can improve on going into 21. It's going to be a challenge right now from an economic point of view. The winter right now is going pretty slow as far as Major League free agent signings, but we'll see how it develops, and we'll follow it closely, and we'll try to do the best we can. So that right now puts it in a nutshell right there going into 21.
Al, final question. I know I'm jumping all over here, but obviously when you introduced AJ Hinch as your manager, you guys go back a long way. You know AJ very, very well. His staff is getting high marks. When you hire AJ, do you just let him go and fill out his staff? Did you have a hand in? I'm obsessed with Chris Fetter because I'm obsessed with pitching, but I mean this is a real impressive staff. What can you tell Tiger fans about the staff AJ put together and AJ Hinch as a manager? What can they expect to see from this Tiger club with AJ at the helm?
Well, we're very excited about it ourselves. When we found that we had the opportunity to hire AJ as our manager, we were very excited. After the interview process, we felt very fortunate that we were able to get him, and through him, we were able to hire a really good, professional baseball staff. To your point, Chris Fetter, he's been on our radar for a couple of years now, and because he had through his relationship with AJ and in the past, and they've worked together. Obviously, we were able to bring him in, but with the other coaches too, like Chip Hale, at third base, who's also a good infield guy, and Chris Cooley's a veteran hitting coach. Jose Cruz Jr., guys like that. It's a really good professional veteran staff that had with a long line of success previously. So. Our players should be very excited about this. We're very excited about it, and just already having meetings with them and our minor league staff, because it's going to start there at the big leagues, and it's going to trickle down all the way down to the lower levels as far as what we're teaching, how we're gonna do things, from top to bottom as an organization. So it's already taking shape. We're very excited to get going.
Al Avila, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Every time, I guess, from here on out, when I watch A Christmas Carol, I'll be thinking that somewhere, wherever he is, Al Avila is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy my Christmas goatee here for another few days, because it comes off right after Christmas.
Really? Well, it looks good though. I would consider keeping it on a little longer there, Al. I mean, it's a very handsome look for you.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Al, I really appreciate your time. Continued success with the Tigers. I know everyone's really, really excited for the 2021 season, whatever the 2021 season is going to be. But there's a lot of great young prospects and some real good Tigers. So we're really looking forward to it. We really wish you a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and thanks for joining us on the Headliner, Al. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Art. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you and everybody out there.
All right, thank you. That will do it for this edition of the Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer. It tastes delicious. It's only 96 calories, and it's available for delivery. Daniela, back to you.
Art, great to hear from Al Avila, and we've still got so much coming up on today's show. We're going to hear from Red Wings general manager Steve Yzerman at 2:30. We'll go live to his press conference as he addresses the media. But of course, we're going to get into Let's Socialize first, presented by AAA. And Carly Johnston has been all over social media taking your questions for us to answer. So Carly, what did you find for us today?
That is right. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Daniela, head to Art, and then I have a question for both of you guys. First one, Daniela, do you think we will see Raymond in the big leagues this season?
This season, no, I do not think so. He's playing in the World Junior Championships. I think that's going to be huge for him. But in this 56-game season, I would say, no, we're not going to see him. I think that he needs to experience a training camp first, and he obviously will not be experiencing that this season. So I would say, as we talked about with Larry Murphy, when we talked to Lucas Raymond, he did say 2021, he thought he would be in a Red Wings uniform. But when he says that, I believe that he means fall of 2021, when he will be at training camp and have the opportunity to make the Red Wings team in a normal season. So then I think maybe he might not make the team right out of training camp, but I think he'll definitely be in a Red Wings uniform at some time during that season.
Well, hopefully it's sooner than later. I'd like to see him in a wing wheel jersey. Then Art, we have a question for you. Also Red Wings. I'm going to limit you to two bullet points. What are the overall expectations for the 2021 Red Wings, and what are you guys looking to see? So Art, 2 bullet points.
Well, I expect them to be competitive. I expect them, I know it's only a 58-game schedule, but if they could win more than 17 games, even though they only won 17 games and 71 games that they played, I would like to see them, and they do play hard, and they play for Jeff Blashill, but I hope that they are competitive and not out of it early. And that's the one aspect that I would like to see. That's my expectation. We know the guys in the room. We respect the guys in the room. It's not that they're not trying, just sometimes the talent level just isn't there. I think with the upgrades that Steve has made, the veteran presence that they have that Mickey Redmond alluded to earlier in the show, Larry Murphy, also, Hall of Fame player, saying, they want to get out of the doldrums that they were in last year. So that's number one. That is what I would like to see, is that the Red Wings are able to start off quickly, build up, and be competitive throughout, whether they make the playoffs or not. Let's be honest. I mean, Tampa and Dallas are probably shoo-ins. Carolina's young, up and coming. Only the top 4 teams in that division are going to make the playoffs and then play each other. So it's a tall task. But if they're on the cusp, if they're right there playing meaningful games, that is number one. Secondly, I really would like to see how some of the young guys, how the taxi squad and the expanded roster is going to work out. I have actually been obsessed with the expanded roster, just knowing because of watching other sports and how they've had to do it. And, as we said, I mean, the Lions had to close their training facility today. Saturday's game against Tampa is still scheduled, but we just don't know. But I like to see how some of these young players grasp the opportunity, because they could be pressed into service because of COVID-19 rather quickly. I mean, they're going to be practicing with the team. There's 3 extra roster spots, 4 guys on the taxi squad. does Michael Rasmussen come back from Austria, and is he ahead of the curve, so to speak? He perfected, he learned how to play center at the professional level last year for Grand Rapids. Giovanni Smith, I'm a big fan. I love Giovanni Smith. Can Giovanni Smith, who does have an offensive upside, I think people are selling him a little bit short, that they don't think that he can score goals. I mean, no, he's not going to be Big Tony. He's not the BT Express, or he's not Philip Zadina. But he can score his fair share of goals, and he's a physical presence. Where's Dennis Chalowski at? I want to see where Dennis is at. Is this an opportunity for a guy that's a big fan favorite like a Joe Hicketts? Could he possibly come in and maybe establish himself given this opportunity? He's going. I would imagine that the guys on the taxi squad and the three guys that are on the expanded roster, there's going to be competition in there. They're going to have an opportunity to play. So I guess that's really pretty much what I'm looking forward to is that aspect, to see how the roster, the expanded roster, the taxi squad work out, how those players that have that opportunity to be here in Detroit work and practice with the Red Wings every day. And if they get an opportunity, what they do with it. And then, of course, just the competitive level of the team being much higher, where they're playing meaningful games through May. Now, if they were playing meaningful games through May in a regular season, that means they'd be in the playoffs, and they'd be maybe knocking on the door of their conference championship. I'd love to see that. I'm not so sure it's going to happen this season, but meaningful games in May for the Red Wings, guys on the expanded roster and taxi squad taking advantage of an opportunity that could come quickly.
All right, so you almost had 2 bullet points with competitiveness in the taxi squad, but then you threw in the playing meaningful games in May. So you were so close.
I'm getting better. It's this hat. It's really warm under here. It's just warm, But I got to keep it on. I've got to keep it on.
Third and final question. I do have to say you did a wonderful job decorating your backdrop. So props to you.
Thank you.
The Christmas cheer, if you will. All right. Third question on that. What are your favorite Christmas traditions? So Danielle, we'll start with you, go to Art, and then I'll give mine.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an old one and a new one, because you'll understand why my family doesn't quite do the first one anymore. But when I was younger, there is my subdivision where I grew up, there was a sledding hill at the end of it. Was seriously like a 2-minute walk. So every Christmas Day, my cousins used to come over. And at that time, I remember there always being snow on Christmas Day. So we would get all bundled up in our snow pants and everything. And we'd take our sleds down to the sledding hill. We'd drag them over there and we would sled for like 2-3 hours. We loved it. They'd have to drag us in there. But obviously we're a little old for sledding now, and none of us have children of our own yet. So that tradition has kind of died off. So hopefully one day we'll pick it back up. But now we just do a white elephant, which is kind of on top of our other gifts that we get each other. But we just do a silly white elephant that's always really fun. So that's my 2 traditions.
Love it. Love it. Art, what about you?
Well, as a boy, I guess my favorite Christmas tradition was watching my parents almost get a divorce trying to put the Christmas tree up, because the stands back then were so subpar. It was enjoyable to watch 2 people that loved each other and basically got along just go toe to toe about, "You're not doing it right, George. No, Catherine." I mean, it was just great. My sister Mary and I would be looking at him like, wow, this is interesting. Mom and Dad are screaming at each other. So, but that's not really a Christmas tradition. Well, in a way, it happened every year, so I guess it was. But I guess I have a Christmas tradition that I have done for several years, and it's basically me because I'm a night owl. I am a big fan of the old television series, The Avengers, not the superhero Avengers. Especially with John Steed in the Emma Peel episodes that had Diana Rigg, who just passed away. She was Emma Peel. Emma Peel, her name was a play on Man Appeal. When I was a little kid when this thing was on, but she was just, she was in a cat suit. She was an equal. Her and John Steed were equals. It was one of the first female characters to ever be considered on par with a man. You know what I mean? She wasn't subservient, I guess is what I'm saying. And in many ways, Emma Peel was probably a little tougher than John Steed. And the one thing about John Steed, why I love the show, he never carried a gun and he was a super secret agent. Well, they have an episode called Too Many Christmas Trees. And it's an episode, and it's a real 60s episode, but it has to do with mind control and mind play and all that. And so every year when everybody goes to bed, because I'm always up, I always put that episode in and watch it on Christmas Eve or early Christmas morning. I always watch Too Many Christmas Trees, the Avengers Christmas episode, so much so that if you go to my Facebook page, that, usually I have the Crowfields or something. I usually have a Van Gogh picture up there, or I change it. But in December, I have the shot. It's a bunch of white Christmas trees, which is a shot that I froze the frame, took it off the TV, and it's from the episode Too Many Christmas Trees. So that's what I do. It's a great episode. The Avengers is a great, great show. And I know since Diana Rigg just passed away, a lot of you can go online and, they're offering all like 56 episodes of the Emma Peel episodes on the Avengers, because Honor Blackman, who also passed away, was on, she went to James Bond. She was like John Steed's original partner. And then Linda Thorson became Tara King after Emma Peel left. I mean, the whole series is great. Patrick McNee was great as John Steed, too. So that's what I do, though. Too Many Christmas Trees. If you can get it, watch it. And if you're watching it about anywhere between 1:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve or early Christmas morning, me and maybe perhaps even Alavila, we're watching it at the same time. You never know.
Maybe, you never know. All right, we only have a couple more minutes left, so I'll give mine quickly. So our old traditions, my dad would take the camcorder and record. I'm the third of 4 kids. He would record all 4 of us walking down the stairs on Christmas morning to go down to the tree to see what Santa brought us. So that was always our tradition. But now that I have my niece, my 3-year-old niece, we started it when she couldn't walk down the stairs. So my sister just kind of acted like she was down the stairs. But now it's so exciting to see her excitement. We're all grown now. So now to see her excited about Santa and ho-ho and presents, although she's afraid of Santa in person. She loves her favorite movie ever. You like, this is The Grinch, the Jim Carrey one, not the cartoon one. But a new tradition we do also kind of Christmas, but more so Thanksgiving. Every night on Thanksgiving, we kick off Christmas season by watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's our favorite movie, my favorite movie. Christmas movie, but also a good movie year round. So fun to see everyone's Christmas traditions. It's really cool that everyone's family has a different one. Unfortunately, it's going to look a little different this year. Christmas Eve is usually at my grandparents', and Christmas Day is on my mom's side. Everyone comes over at my parents' house, but unfortunately, everything will have to be done via Zoom this year. But looking to spread some holiday cheer like Art does to this show, of course.
Yeah. Every time I look at the Santa behind you, Art, I laugh.
I love it. Art is the Santa of WoW. Truly.
I'm spreading right now.
Love it.
What?
I need it.
I'm spreading.
Well, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. So to wrap up, let's socialize. Art, can you give us a little Christmas tune?
Well, of course, my all-time favorite is that Mariah Carey jangle thing that we can't get enough of, right? I mean, it's played like every second. But my favorite Christmas tune, and I didn't know this is emanates from England, and there's several different versions, but the one that I've always liked, even as a kid, and there's a lot of great ones, I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day. I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning. The Virgin Mary and Christ were there on Christmas Day. It goes on. It's long, but there's several different verses. I've always liked that tune. I like Silver Bells because I'm a big fan of the Lemon Drop Kid, which is a Bob Hope movie. Great movie too. So
I just wanted to hear you sing.
I have a ton of them.
Beautiful. I like that. Guys, stay tuned. Steve Yzerman press conference is coming up, but Danielle, I'm going to hand it off to you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Carly. And like she said, we're going to see Steve Yzerman in just a little while here. But first, a quick thank you to AAA for presenting Let's Socialize. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. 2:30 is the magic number for Steve Yzerman to be addressing the media. We will go to that live, but in the meantime, we've got a little bonus guest for you guys. Nick Kotzanika of NHL.com is joining us now. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We've got some exciting NHL news.
We've got hockey coming back, so I'm excited. It is kind of like Christmas morning a little bit, finally get some games to unwrap here coming up.
Right, especially this year when things don't really feel as Christmassy and as exciting as they normally do. It was great to get this news leading up to the holidays. Let's start by talking about the amount of time for training camp, Nick. So teams that were in the bubble in the playoffs last season, I guess I should say, are going to have a 10-day training camp so they can start on January 3rd. The teams that were not in the bubble are able to start on December 31st. My question for you is this enough time for teams to prepare for a season where we know we won't have preseason games?
Well, I'm sure the Red Wings would tell you no. I think ideally it's not, but none of this situation is ideal. I mean, if I'm the Red Wings, I wanted more time. The more time you can practice, the more time you can play, the more time you can develop, the better. That's not the situation we have. So I think in all instances here, we've got to do the best with what we've got. At the end of the day, every team is going to be very similar. You're going to have a short training camp. You're going to have no preseason games, and you're essentially dropping right into the stretch run. If there's a positive for Detroit, it's that. It's basically like you're coming out of the All-Star break tied with the rest of the league. So in that sense, maybe there's a silver lining for the Red Wings.
Nick, when I look at this whole negotiation and everything that has happened, and I go back to the bubble, which was pulled off flawlessly, and then it appears to me, and I don't know, everybody seemed to come to their senses when they decided we're going to shelve all this financial stuff. Where the CBA is going to stay the same, players are going to get paid their regular salary, even though they're going to be playing 58 games. Once that all got resolved, everything seemed to move quickly, which I really have to compliment the NHL and the NHLPA, because I think in the big picture, they just saw how important it is for a segment of mankind to get hockey back on the ice. I mean, I know that's melodramatic here, but it is Christmas time, but I really think that they all came to their senses, and, I'm a bit stunned, but I'm so pleased that this was able to get resolved.
Well, I think you got to go back even farther than that. I mean, when the coronavirus hit and the 2019-20 season was paused, the NHL was set for record revenues. Things were in a really good place, and the coronavirus just cratered that. And the NHL and the NHLPA had to come together and work together to find a solution. They really, every step of the way, worked together to bring the game back for the return to play plan, the 2014 tournament that we saw wrapped up last season, and they really had to do it again here. None of this is easy. And yes, the economics stayed the same in the CBA that they agreed to, but let's be real here. The owners and the players are still splitting revenue 50-50. The players are not going to make the full value of their salaries. It's just the math doesn't work. But they're going to come back and they're going to play anyway. So none of this is easy. There's a lot of complex issues to deal with here. There are compromises on both sides. But the good news is we're going to have the game. We're going to have a lot of the best parts of the game. We're not going to have a full schedule or full buildings, but we're going to have rivalries. We're going to have a stretch run. We're going to have a Stanley Cup playoffs. And then hopefully at the end of this, we're going to have a return to normalcy for 21-22.
Nick, we knew all along that there was going to be some sort of division realignment to try to limit travel as much as possible during this NHL season. And the Red Wings ended up in the Central Division with Carolina, Columbus, Dallas, Chicago, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa. So they've got the Stanley Cup champion and the Western Conference champion in their division, along with a bunch of other teams that were also in that 24-team tournament that you mentioned. So how tough of a season is this going to be for the Red Wings, and how do you see them faring in this division?
Well, it's going to be extremely tough. I mean, let's be real about where they're starting from. They were the worst team in the league last year. I think they've improved significantly, but I still think that they've got a long way to go, and the emphasis needs to be on the long term. What's fun about this division is you sort of, reignites or rekindle some old rivalries from the old Central, right? You obviously have Chicago, Nashville, Columbus. So I think that's fun. I think for one season, it's fun to be back in that division. You've got Dallas, an old, Red Wings rival from back in the 90s and early 2000s. So there's going to be a lot of fun hockey here. You hope that a shortened season gives them a little bit of an advantage, just the fact that it's short. If they can get hot, there's more room for randomness. But it's still going to be difficult. You've got the defending champs. You've got the runners-up in the same division. You've got Carolina. You've got Columbus. You've got Nashville. Florida's a better team. Chicago still has, Kane and Taves and Keith. And they've got some really good young players like Kubalik and Kirby Doc. The competition is really tough. So, enjoy the return of hockey. But to me, it's more about the long-term development of the Detroit Red Wings for the future.
Nick, when we look at it with the expanded rosters of 26 and a taxi squad of 4 guys, so there's going to be like 30 guys hanging around the Red Wings all season long, player-wise. And I used to say this about Sergei Fedorov. Not only does he march to a different drummer, he's his own one-man band. But I think that you could probably put Steve into that same category. So I'm not going to ask you what Steve's going to do, but does this expanded roster, the way it plays into the salary cap and all that, does that even put a guy like the Red Wings or teams like the Red Wings who are so far under the cap in a better position to maybe make some maneuvering and maybe not so much accelerate a rebuild, but actually maybe add a piece or two that was not going to be added until maybe further on down the road?
I kind of think it hurts them because if I'm Steve Yzerman, I was hoping that some teams in cap trouble would have a really hard time clearing cap space, and the taxi squad may give them a little bit of a safety valve, which means they may not be as desperate to make some moves to clear cap space. Because if I'm Steve Yzerman, that's what I would really prefer, is to have teams need to give up some assets to clear some space, and I can take advantage of that. I think for Detroit, you just stay the course. I think there's one class of young players that benefits, like Svechnikov or Chalowski, Giovanni Smith. Those guys can maybe stay around and cycle in the lineup easier. The rest of them, though, the bigger prospects, to me, you still want them in situations where they're playing. I mean, you want all your prospects playing, but with the American Hockey League the way it is, the way things are over here, some players that may be the best route is the taxi squad. The rest of them, I want them overseas. I want them playing. I want them playing in big games and playing in all situations for their long-term development.
Nick, you bring up an interesting thing about the cap space, because what I'm interested in, do you think that you're going to see maybe guys with big contracts, one day they're on the taxi squad, and then the next day, oops, they're off the taxi squad and they're actually in the lineup? I mean, that kind of maneuvering, or do you think the league will go, no, that's not what we're talking about here?
Well, I can guarantee you that there are people a lot smarter than I am, who are paid a lot more than I am, who will manipulate it as much as they can. They're going to go right up to the boundary and try to, stretch the rules as far as they can. But yes, the league is going to look for cap circumvention and to prevent too much hijinks there. But yeah, I mean, like if you're a team in cap trouble, you're going to use that as much to your advantage as you can. There's no rule that says you can't have fewer than 23 people on the NHL roster. So I'm sure people have thought of that. I'm sure the league has thought of that, and we haven't seen the full rules yet. So I'll be interested to see when all the details are released and we'll actually do.
Nick, we have also yet to see a schedule, but hopefully we will see that in the next couple of days here. And we are expecting that it will be more of a playoff type, series type schedule. So the Red Wings may go to Tampa and play 3 games, or Nashville and play 3 games or 2 games, whatever it may be. I know, like you said, we kind of just have to roll with the punches in a season like this. We've got to make the best of everything we have. But how do you feel about that? Do you like more of a series style play, or do you think it should be 1 game?
I don't like it in general. I wouldn't want to do this every year. And the big reason for that is if I'm paying for tickets and I'm sitting in the stands, I don't want to see the same team night after night in the regular season, right? But without fans in the stands, or with limited fans in the stands, it changes the dynamic a bit. And with the coronavirus, you want to limit travel. You want to be as responsible as possible while and mitigating risk as much as possible while having a season. So I think it makes sense in this scenario to limit travel, to play games in bunches. And from a TV standpoint, and if you want to embrace it, it amplifies rivalries. I think this whole season is going to be, a playoff feel. You get a 56-game play-in, essentially, and you're going to have to come out. You're only playing your division rivals. You got to come out of your division in the first 2 rounds anyway. And you're going to be playing teams back-to-back, and sometimes more than that. So I would embrace it for what it is this season. And then hopefully we go back to normal and more of a normal schedule in the future when we have people in the building.
Nick, I know that there's going to be a schedule released here, hopefully within the next couple of days. We've seen the division realignments. We know that it's a 56-game schedule. So I'm going to have you put on your soothsayer cap, and I want you to, channel right now with me. I can help you channel.
All right.
We're channeling.
You must have one on underneath there that I don't have. I just have the Chrome Dome.
Yeah, well,
All right, I'm
I know we're both Greek. I don't know what happened here. But with that said, I want to. Do you see a couple teams, regardless of how the schedule plays, that have a distinct advantage? That when it's all said and done, like on July 20th, let's say, just before the Olympics, one team in particular that you think, what? Don't be surprised if the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm just saying that because of Quinn Hughes, don't be surprised if the Vancouver Canucks aren't hoisting the cup.
Well, it's funny, we've thought a lot about this, who benefits and who doesn't. I think, number one, teams that are healthy benefit, because any injuries are going to be, more pronounced, right? Like if you miss 10 games, that's almost like missing double that amount in a regular season. So if I'm looking at Tarasenko is going to be out till March, or Kucherov's going to be out till whenever, that hurts you more than if it were an 82-game schedule. But number two, I think it helps, establish teams with established systems and identities, because it's a very short training camp. There's going to be no preseason games. You're going right into the stretch run. So if you have a strong identity, you have a good system, your players know how to play, I think that's going to help you, hit the ground running. So I look at teams like the Islanders, the Blue Jackets, the Blues, teams like that have a really strong way they play. Obviously, the better teams in the league are that way too. The Lightning, go down the list. But I think those two things, I want to be healthy. Number one, you always want to be, but I think injuries, the effect is greater in a shorter season. And I want a team that's established, that doesn't need a lot of practice time and a lot of training camp time to get in gear.
Well, Nick, either way, we're excited to see the NHL puck drop, hopefully on January 13th. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and enjoy your holiday. I hope you're able to enjoy the holiday, even though we've got some crazy circumstances.
Oh, I will. Always do. And, honestly, it's a big relief for me to see that the NHL is coming back, just personally, professionally, and then just as a fan. It's going to be a great holiday because I know it's on the other side of it too.
Definitely. We're right there with you, Nick. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be chatting with you soon.
Thank you very much.
And Art, we are just about 2 minutes away from 2:30 when Steve Yzerman is supposed to address the Detroit media. He is going to address the Detroit media, not supposed to. He's just,
you know what? Ebenezer Eiserman just took over, and he said, "Nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm leaving." Bah humbug to the media.
Oh man, wouldn't that be great, Art? That would just be fantastic.
It certainly would be.
What do you think he's going to talk about, Art? What do you think there is a press conference for today? What is Steve Eiserman going to tell all of us?
Well, I think he's going to be asked, maybe perhaps, are you still planning on naming a captain? I'm sure somebody's going to try to get that out right away because, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, Danielle. I think you are. He was known as the captain. So it just seems like a natural question to ask him. I think they're going to find out just about, what training camp's going to look like. A lot of inter-squad games. Are you going to have several red and white games? How many guys are you going to have? We hear up to 38 players could be here. I know a lot of guys in Sweden are going to be around, are going to stay with their clubs, but some of them are coming back. The Phils are already back in Zadina and Hronik, so they're here. Does Rasmussen come back from Austria? I think it'll be more of those type of questions because we don't have a schedule. How the division realignment, how much say did you have in that? Were you in on some of these negotiations? Roster size, who does that benefit? There's so many different ways you can go. So I would expect him to address all that. I'm sure he's kind of relieved. I'm sure he was getting kind of bored. I think he went through every ounce of Red Wing gear that he has, maybe he'll be in a shirt and tie today. Who knows? But I just think, I think there's going to be a sense of happiness and relief too. I don't know if Steve's going to show it because he plays it close to the vest emotion wise. You never really can figure it out, but I think that he's just going to be pretty happy. For the most part during this whole thing, he's been pretty cool to talk to. He's been pretty open. He's been honest. He jokes around a little bit. So, I still think that we're going to, see some of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to have to say. Maybe he will tell us, we're going to play long homestands like they do in baseball, and we're going to have long road trips like they do in baseball. So, when we get on the board to Chicago, we're going Chicago, Nashville, Columbus, and then we're coming back to Detroit. I don't know how that's going to work out, but it'll be interesting.
It's a shame we couldn't get him on to join us. We just couldn't fit him into the schedule for a one-on-one interview. So we'll have to hear what he says in the press conference.
He's always waiting to come on, and we run out of time. That's on me. That's on me.
We just can't fit him in. We're getting close though, Art. And I think you bring up a very interesting point in what the format of training camp is going to look like, because it's something that has kind of been the same for a long time, especially when the Red Wings are up in Traverse City, but now they are going to be at Little Caesars Arena and they have the potential for 2 sheets of ice, but we have to remember that the Pistons are playing there as well. So it's going to be interesting how the format of everything and how they're going to make it as intense as possible so they can get ready for gameplay.
Right, because, usually when they have this many players around, it's usually during development camp where they use both sheets of ice. They use the Belfour Center and they use the big ice at Little Caesars Arena. But, if the men who, down the red, white, and blue, the Detroit Pistons are playing, obviously, how many times have we one thing, first of all, the crew at Little Caesars Arena.
Because Steve Eiserman is ready to go. So we're going to get to the press conference right now. We'll be back after to recap what you guys are about to hear.
I guess about that plan. So yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay. And then for you having been there, I'm just curious what changes for a player when they are named captain as opposed to before when they're just one of many leaders in a locker room, I guess.
Well, I guess there's more of a heightened sense of responsibility. I think you kind of take into account in most situations you try to what's the right expression, react in a leadership role or a responsible role. So again, I just think you take a lot more things into consideration that you may not normally, whether it's a call by an official or a situation off the ice with a teammate or whatnot, or just anything to do with the team. As the captain, you get a little bit more sense of responsibility regarding every situation, for that matter.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Helene St. James of the Detroit Free Press.
Steve, thanks for doing this.
Yep, no problem, Helene.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You as well.
What do you think of the expanded? It sounds like it's going to be a 23-man roster and possibly 4 to 6-man taxi squad. What kind of advantage can that be for a team?
I don't know that it's under the circumstance with the potential of players not being available on very short notice due to a positive test. You having that taxi squad around allows you to get somebody in the lineup immediately. Whereas if you're on the road or, I'm not exactly sure what there's so many questions about the American Hockey League, whether they're going to play, who's playing, quarantining rules, bringing players up and down. So the taxi squad just is an extra layer to facilitate adding players to your lineup. Whether it's COVID related or not, that guys are going to have to quarantine. So you keep them close by. They're ready to be recalled for whatever reason. So I don't know that it's not necessarily an advantage for any particular team, but just the ability to run your team, it probably made it a necessity.
I guess I'm thinking of it also from the perspective of, you have some young players trying to make the team. Even if they're not in the lineup, is there a benefit to them being practicing with NHL players on a regular basis?
Helene, that's a debate. Between are they better off? You mentioned these young players. For any player, for that matter, you can only practice for so long before you want to play a game. So the debate is, it's early obviously yet, but how long do you want to keep a guy on the taxi squad? I expect the taxi squad guys to play games in the NHL, dependent on injury, dependent on your own club situation, your ability to move players up and down without requiring waivers and whatnot. So the players on the taxi squad should play, but I debate the benefits of having a young player potentially practicing for 1, 2, even 3 months straight and not seeing a game versus loaning them to whether it's the American League or another league and they're playing regularly.
Last thing for me is just this play of guys like Moritz Seider and Jonathan Berggren kind of giving you hope that maybe they can come in and make the team better as soon as next fall. They seem to be having really good seasons in the SHL.
Yes. Yeah. Just off the top of my head right now, Moritz, Joe Veleno, Jonathan Berggren, Albert Johansson's playing well over there. Next fall, assuming we start next fall, it's obviously quite a ways off, but it's encouraging to see them do well. So, I do think it's just difficult to project kids that really have never played in the NHL before to project them today. They're going to be ready. We'll, eventually when we get back, we'll see them and they'll show us if they're ready or not. But at that time, it's extremely encouraging to see them doing very well as young players in what we think is a really, really good league in Sweden.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Justin Rose at WXYZ.
Steve, how you doing, man?
Good, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing well. Expectations for your team this year. A long layoff. How have guys been staying ready, and what are you expecting, kind of day one with this team, knowing where you guys are in your rebuilding process?
Well, I expect them to be energetic and enthusiastic. We've got a lot of changes in our lineup. I'm hopeful. I'm expecting them all to be in excellent physical condition. Again, we've made a lot of changes. It'll be interesting to see who plays with whom and how we do right off the bat. We're going to play a lot of hockey games. I'm excited to see the team, Justin. I can't really predict what we're going to be. Obviously, I hope we're improved from last year. How much I believe we'll be improved. How much, I don't know. But I'm just anxious to get going. But I expect the players to be in top physical condition, the best condition you can be in not playing games. Playing games is a whole different level or type of conditioning. And I don't know that there's any way you can really replicate that from playing games. Having said that, I don't think it'll take all that long for them to get in game shape. You play, 2 weeks. I think I've had a first glimpse at the schedule. We'll play, I think 8 games in the first 14 days. The guys will be in game shape after that.
Kind of off that point, the time it takes for a team to gel, if you will. Is this kind of one of those, you want obviously them to start game one being playing at the full level, but is this one of those teams that maybe every NHL team will be dealing with kind of that lag process of kind of getting into it with such a short training camp?
Yeah, we'll have roughly 14 days of training camp. No preseason games. They'll scrimmage some. They'll scrimmage a lot probably, but again, it's not the same as a regular game. It's funny. Every year, some teams get off to really good starts, others don't. Why that exactly is, I'm not really sure. Honestly, you'd think you'd have a really good. We all have. Every organization has a great off-season plan for their training camp and their preseason, and you never know how you start. But I believe the entire league, everyone's going to be enthusiastic. I would expect everybody to be in tip-top shape. Is there an advantage for the teams that played in the playoffs because they played more recently? I'm not sure. It's been quite a while since they've played too. So a lot of their advantage is probably worn off. So again, when the puck drops, roughly the 13th or the 14th, I'm anxious to watch the team play, and we'll see how. We'd love to get off to a good start. We all probably have our opinion what a good start for the Red Wings will be this year. But nonetheless, I'm excited, and I really don't know what to predict for us.
Thanks, Steve. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
Our next question is from Ansar Khan with M Live.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Ansar.
How beneficial was it for Zadina and Ronik, especially to play in Europe during this hiatus? And is there anybody else that you're planning on recalling out of the guys that are on loan in Europe?
Coming over from Europe, we'll leave Moritz Seider and Joe Velena will stay in Sweden until the completion of their team seasons. And apart from that, you mentioned both Phils and Gustav Lidstrom and Matthias Brome, a Swedish player we signed in the off season. They've been recalled, so none of the younger guys will come over. No.
And just can you just talk a little about? It looked like both Zadina and Ronik were very productive during their time there, and just how beneficial will that be in kind of getting a head start heading into camp for them?
Well, I believe since the season started, or the hockey season started in September, I think it would be beneficial for all players to be playing as opposed to practicing. A lot of the NHL players, there's a lot of reasons why they don't go and play, and we don't let them go and play for that matter. But for the younger players that are trying to establish themselves, make an NHL team, it's important for them to play. So I think it's an advantage for these kids. They're playing a lot. I would assume Phil and both Zadina and Arona played got a lot of ice time. I expect them to be a little sharper. Now, having said that, the league they're playing in is not the NHL. It's a pro league and it's a men's league. This will be a significant step up, but I think I definitely know it's a benefit for them just to be playing games, shooting the puck in the net, playing in a lot of different situations. It just furthers their development as players.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Our next question is from Mike Stone with 97.1 The Ticket.
Steve, Merry Christmas. I don't know. Sorry about the dog. I don't know how much input you guys had on the divisions. Just it seems weird where Buffalo is in the East and and Carolina is in the Central, and the other side where you guys get Dallas instead of Minnesota. Did you guys have any input on that? Because
no, we did not. No, I suppose we could have weighed in on it. We chose not to. I'm not sure our opinion would have really mattered. the league has, in some cases, has specific reasons I'm aware of where certain teams are in certain divisions. But ultimately, there wasn't going to be a perfect setup probably for us. So yeah, our division, there's a couple teams you might wonder why. Ultimately, we're not really losing any sleep over it. It's a little bit more travel for us, but again, under the circumstance, we're trusting the league did what they felt they had to do, and for various reasons. And I don't necessarily know all the reasons why a couple of the teams are in our division.
And the other thing with COVID, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have to have a third goalie standing by. Are you confident? Obviously, Bernier and Grace will be your top two. Who's the third goalie in the equation right now?
Well, you don't necessarily, you can carry a third goalie on your roster as one of your 23, or you at least have to have one on the taxi squad. So we'll debate how we work that. Between Calvin Pickard and Boyle and nets for us, as well. We got as you mentioned, Grace Bernier. We'll kind of figure out how we use the taxi squad. It is dependent on what happens also at the American League level. So I don't know. At this time, we'll have a goalie at least on the taxi squad. We might even keep two on the taxi squad for that matter. Haven't quite figured it out yet. And some of what we do with the taxi squad will be dependent on what we're doing in the American Hockey League.
Thank you.
Okay.
My next question is from Carly Johnston with Red Wings TV.
Hey, Steve. Happy holidays. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Carly.
A couple questions. First up, looking at guys like Evgeny Svechnikov and Giovanni Smith, is this enough time, this training camp, is this enough time to look at them and for them to really make an impact? And also with the division realignment, how exciting is it to play a rival like Chicago more again?
Regards to the training camp, we'll have 13 days on the ice, 12 days on the ice probably. No preseason games. It's hard for the young guys that are trying to make the roster or trying to make a really good impression. All they can do is show up in great shape and practice well. And ultimately this year, and I think this would go for most teams, honestly, you kind of project what your lineup is going to be, and then we'll have to make some decisions prior to January 13 on it, 1, 2, 3 guys. I'm not really sure, but it is more difficult for those guys to, normally they would get in 4 or 5 preseason games and they're battling for a spot with other guys. So, again, if they're not on if any player is not on the roster on the 13th, doesn't mean they can't be a week later or 2 weeks later. So it does make it more challenging and really, in fairness to them all, judge based on practice, like who's having a better practice than the other guy who should be on the team. It's really difficult. Being in a division with Chicago, great city, we've had a great rivalry. The games are good because whether you have Blackhawk fans in the building in Detroit or Red Wing fans in the building in Chicago, they're very lively and entertaining games. At least to start, there won't be any fans, so that diminishes it a bit. But again, the original 6 matchups are great, and we're happy to be in the same division with them.
Awesome, Steve. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Our next question is from Larry Lage with the Associated Press.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Larry.
You talked about being excited about the team, and you made a ton of moves. Can you highlight a couple acquisitions or changes that you made that, just off the top of your head, you're most excited about or very excited about?
Well, all of them. How's that? And I want to temper my excitement. I don't necessarily have a favorite acquisition, if that's what you want me to say. We've made several changes, and all the players were very enthusiastic when we talked to them, prior to signing with the team. And that was very encouraging for me. So I think there'll be a lot of renewed enthusiasm. As you know, the majority of our players are on relatively short-term 1 to 2 year contracts. They've got a lot to play for, a lot of personal motivation. So things are different, and we got some different personalities. I look forward to really getting to know them. I don't know these players that well, other than talking to them a few times, or maybe running into them at an event somewhere along the way throughout their careers. So I'm excited to spend some time with them all, get to know them, and as we kind of continue to remake and rebuild our team here. So.
Our next question is from Nick Katsanika with NHL.com.
Hey, Steve. Hope you're well.
Good, Nick. Thank you. You?
There's a quote that you gave us at the start of the, I think the return to play that really stuck in my head. You said, "We'll see who wants to be a hockey player," just because of the long layoff and the amount of motivation guys will have to have individually. So I guess my question is, how closely have you been able to follow guys and how they've used this time? Is anybody excite you for what they did in this time, and what do you want to see when camp opens?
Yeah, I think that probably that specific comment was more really directed at our younger players. Somewhat directed at all players, but really at the young guys. Like, again, in the summertime, throughout the summer, throughout the fall, you could find a lot of reasons why you couldn't skate, why you couldn't go to the gym, why you couldn't do this. Everybody has a reason. You and I have a reason why we can't do this or that. But for these guys, they can make an excuse, or hey, I don't have access to a strength coach, or I don't have access to ice. My point was, find a way, and we'll help you find a way. So mostly my contact and staying on top of the players is, we have a strength coach in Grand Rapids. We have a strength coach with the Detroit Red Wings, Sean Horkoff, Dan Cleary, Nick Cronwall. They're staying on top of the kids, staying in touch with them, checking in with them at all times. Our strength coach, I counted on them to make sure our players were in good spots, make sure they had what they needed. But ultimately, the players got to have the drive and the determination and the will to do it. And again, I say that, and we'll find out in 10 days when our players show up at camp. Unfortunately, we won't have a lot of the young kids here. We won't have any of them virtually here, so we won't know on them. But our development team and our strength and conditioning staff, they're the ones responsible. I believe the core, that small core of guys that we have in with the Red Wings that have been here for a few years, after watching them for a season, the majority of them are pretty driven, and I'm expecting them to be in tip-top condition, and that I'm pretty certain of that.
I actually want to ask you one more thing. In the 80s, you actually had an ad on your Red Wings jersey, East Side, for East Side Sporting Goods. So I wanted to ask you how you feel about ads on the helmets, and if the Red Wings are going to have a sponsor and what it'll be.
I'm not sure if we will or won't. I know the league has discussed. I don't know that I should say planning, but I know it's a possibility. Whether the Red Wings do or not, and if we do, I'm not sure who it is. It's Nick. It's not my department. I'm in hockey ops. But it's an opportunity. One, we have to be creative. Obviously our revenues have taken a significant hit, and you're always, regardless, looking at ways to grow revenues. Any business, any industry is looking at ways to grow revenues, generate new revenues. So I expect it to occur. I don't know what our team or any team in the league will look like, but I'm expecting it, whether it's helmets. I'm not sure if they do jerseys this year. I don't think they talked about that, but you see it in Europe. You see it in the international events. I guess I don't really have too big of an issue with it. But I think it's a good opportunity to try it and see if we can generate revenue from it. And again, it's the norm in outside of North America in every league. It's the norm.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
All right, we have a few more minutes with Steve. Next, we'll go to Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Steve. First and foremost, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you and yours. You're
Thanks,
looking
Art.
good.
You
I
too.
love the hat. I have to say that. I just love that look on you. It's perfect. But with that said,
it's about as close as I could get to ever getting accepted at University of Michigan.
well, if you can somehow, if your schedule permits it, if you can go on a recruiting trip or two with Jim Harbaugh wearing that hat, I think you'll make quite an impact. But we can talk about that later. But because Mel seems to be doing well with the Michigan hockey team as far as recruiting. But with all that said, seriously, is Rasmussen coming back or is he staying in Austria?
Oh, so yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, no, Michael is back. I believe he traveled on Monday, so he will be here ready to go for the start of training camp.
And finally, you said you got a peek at the schedule. It's 8 games in 14 days, I think you said. Is it going to be
something
kind of
like that, Art? I got it here somewhere. I don't want to, and again, it's not finalized, so I don't want to be, talking about, but it's roughly 8 or 9 games in 8 games in actually 10 games in 18 days in January, it looks like.
So will it be the baseball type of schedule where the Red Wings could conceivably have like a 6-game homestand, play 3 different teams, and then go on the road for the same amount?
Correct. Most of them are, pretty much. Well, every city, it looks like every city we go to will play 2 games in that city and then go on to the next city and play 2. So we have, as it's set now, we have varying 2-game trips, 4-game trips, and 6-game trips. So 1, 2, or 3 cities.
And finally, will you have 2 sheets of ice at Little Caesars Arena, or will the Pistons impede you being able to do that?
I haven't seen the Pistons schedule as well. I'm kind of assuming that once the floor is laid for a basketball game, I don't think we would take it up just for take it off for practice. So again, we haven't worked through the details of preseason. Obviously, we'll have Belfour, but just as you asked me the question, I don't anticipate us having the ice available. If the floor is down, the floor will stay down until we're playing games. That's what I would expect.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we have time for one more question from Ted Colfin with the Detroit News.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for doing this.
Yep.
Hey, just elaborate more on the taxi squad. Is that a little bit tricky? Because, if you put a younger kid on there that may or may not play a lot this year and kind of hinder their development, is that going to be a little bit thought-provoking as to who goes on there and whatnot?
Yeah, for sure. We got to debate, what the unknown on the taxi squad is how many games they're actually going to play. I just think kind of common sense tells you they're probably going to have to play. Guys are going to get injured. You cross our fingers. You hope nobody contracts the virus and can't play. But at certain points, guys get called up. Instead of being called up from Grand Rapids, they're going to get up from the taxi squad. Just how much or when, that's the unpredictable part. So, yeah, we really weigh, and we will. And we made no decision at this point, but figure out how we use that taxi squad. And are we better off with a young player like I would say McIsaac, but he's injured, a first-year pro or a second-year pro, any of those kids for that matter. Should they sit on the taxi squad and never play, or are they in the American League playing if they're playing? If the American League doesn't play, then we got to come up with another plan for them. So all those things, those decisions will be made over the course of the next 3 weeks and kind of figure it out. But yeah, in general, my own thought is I really want the young kids playing every night, playing on a team every night. Practice is great for a little bit, but day in, day out, all guys want to play, regardless of whether you're 20 or 30. They all want to play games, and anybody who's on that taxi squad, I just know after a while, it's going to be a bit like Groundhog Day for them. So, we kind of got to figure it out, and then ultimately, you can even move guys from the American League or from into the taxi squad, transfer them back and forth. So, lots of things to figure out. But in general, I think it's a necessity, and I thought it was a very good idea between the Players Association and the league to institute that program.
Hey, forgive me, I jumped on a minute or two late. Is the roster all set in your eyes, or are you still poking around, or what?
Definitely poking around. Like I say that it's like I don't want you to sit there and waiting for us to make a move or anything like that. But you're always looking at ways to get ahead or improve. And we'll continue to do that right up until the regular season starts. So is the roster set? No. And I still, one or two of these young kids come in and do really well. That's a good thing. And it forces us to make a decision.
Hey, last one, and this may be out of your pay grade, but just the fans in the stands. I mean, do you expect to have, it doesn't sound like there will be any at the start of the season, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming no. You probably really know as much as we do. It really is subject to local, state, and I'm not sure the federal government, but state and local governments, and we're not there yet. I don't know if or when we'll have fans. So right now we're going into our season with the idea that we're playing in empty arenas, with really not a plan, in place and for fans in the building until we know that that's a possibility.
Hey, thanks, Steve.
All right, that is all the time we have with Steve today. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, we look forward to seeing everyone in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Steve.
Happy holidays.
There you have it, everybody. Red Wings general manager Steve Yzerman. We're going to have a little roundtable discussion about what we just heard. So I'm going to bring in Art Regner and Carly Johnston right now. Carly, we'll start with you. I know you were on the Zoom call listening to what Steve had to say about puck drop being January 13th and everything that comes with it. What was your biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway has to be Steve saying that they will be naming a captain here shortly, around training camp-ish. So, we'll be hearing that in maybe a week, maybe in a couple weeks, but it's coming. So that's really exciting time for Hockeytown as a whole. Didn't say who it was. I think we all have a good feeling of who it probably will be. But then again, you never know. I mean, come on, it's Steve Yzerman. And after this crazy year, nothing is a given. But outside of that, going in net, the goalie situation. So I guess with this new acquisition, they're saying that there's going to be a third goalie. We obviously know Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss will be the two flip-flopping goalies. We'll see what happens there. But looking at having a third goalie as maybe a taxi squad guy, but they said they could have him on the roster. So looking to see what they'll do there. But Steve said they're looking at Calvin Pickard and Kevin Boyle as a third backup goalie. So that was something that I guess I haven't really been thinking about at all. I've been looking at January 13th as a start date. Never really thought about in that what they'll do with that situation. If, heaven forbid, something happens to the two of them, injury or illness, what have you, you never know. But then something I asked about was I should say two people. So I've been asking about Evgeny Svechnikov and Giovanni Smith. What's going to happen with them? These are two guys that I think deserve a spot on the Red Wings roster, but they're still young, and especially with this really weird year we've had going on, are they ready now? So looking at that, I asked Steve, are these guys you'll be looking at training camp, and is this going to be enough time to really make that decision? Steve said it's not enough time to make that decision. It's not fair for these guys. They're not getting a good look at them. But that's not to say that they could be brought up down the line, maybe a couple weeks into the season, or, who knows, they may be starting January 13th with the Red Wings. And then I know Art asked about the crazy schedule, the baseball style schedule that we're looking at for this season. Steve said he had the schedule. It's not finalized, but he said it is crazy. I know Art can speak to it a little more. I won't steal his thunder, but it was cool to hear about that as well. But just the excitement in his voice. I know he said he's excited to see us. I know he was talking to Art when he said that, because right when Art started talking and asking me questions, Steve's face lit up. He had a big smile on his face. So I know we do how much he loves Steve, but I do think Steve loves Art as well. But again, the captain, looking at how the roster will be different, especially with all the young guys we acquired in the offseason, and who will be the third backup goalie, and just this insane schedule that we have going on. And also, Art was about to hand it off to you, but
don't do it, Carly.
Carly, please light up your sweater for me, please.
I was worried earlier that I was going to give someone a seizure viewing this Doing the show.
My lighted Christmas tree back here is actually a hat, but I figured it'd be too close if I were to put it on and with the lights going on, because you're right. Sometimes doesn't prolonged blinking make you go insane? Anyway, you know.
I was earlier, but anyway.
Good though. That looks good.
Sure. As I talk about one thing that also stood out to me was Steve talking about the division realignment. I asked him how exciting it would be that we're playing Chicago more now. I mean, you know, back in his heyday, they were playing them how many times? And that's just a huge rivalry that will happen between these two teams in the Central Division, and also playing against his former team, Tampa Bay Lightning. So that'll be cool to see his two teams going head to head a little more, and the rivalry between the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. He said about the fans in the stands, it's a bummer that they won't be there to start. We should say we don't know what can happen down the line, but he's excited. Hopefully, if we do get fans in the stands, to have some Blackhawks fans in Little Caesars Arena, and then vice versa in Chicago. So I don't know about you guys, but it was a very exciting press conference. I could tell Steve was excited. All of us media, you know, we loved having him on and ask him questions. I think we all started with happy holidays. Thanks so much for doing this. You know, it was our little Christmas or holiday treat, if you will. But those are my top takeaways from that press conference with Steve.
Art, I'm going to let you have as much time as you want. Not really, though, because we do have to
log off, because Art's going to take it away for the rest of the day.
But one thing that I really not
okay,
really. The thing that I did want to add, Carly, all the great points, and with the schedule being so wild, I thought it was interesting the question that Steve was asked about: are these guys going to be able to be in game shape by the time that the puck drops on January 13th? And he said he thinks they will be. And then when he said they had 8 or 10 games in the first 14 days of the season or whatever it may be. He said after that, they're going to be in shape. So he expects it to be quick. He expects them to get their legs back. And I thought that was something that was a really good sign to hear from Steve Yzerman. And
yeah,
you can't sit there, Art, while we're talking. You got to be doing something.
I mean, Art, you're being distracting.
Right?
You know, I'm sorry, Danielle, and obviously I have enormous amounts of respect for you. I thought I could flip this over to the other side just by flicking my head, but I can't do it. I think it's impossible. I thought that would be kind of like a trick, so I apologize.
Art's waiting for his turn, and he's trying to be very distracting when it's ours. But to your point, Daniela, I mean, I do think these guys stay ready going into training camp every year. I don't think this year, I mean, obviously towards the beginning of the shutdown, the pandemic, there was nothing open. There were no ice rinks that they could go to, no gyms. But in the past few months, things have loosened up a bit. So I think they have had those private training sessions, and they have been on the ice. So I think going into training camp, I think they're already ready. But then again, they haven't been playing games. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see that crazy schedule right off the bat. But I think that these guys are coming into it ready and in shape. Okay, Art.
They've got to be itching to play. They have to be itching to play. But
I
Art,
know.
go ahead. Take the floor, Art.
Well, I thought the interesting thing that essentially except for the teenage Red Wings that are playing with their European clubs, most of them in Sweden, for sure, Joe Veleno, and he said this in his blog entry, which will be up today on DetroitRedWings.com, and Mo Seider are going to stay in Europe until their teams are done with their season. I really fully expect Veleno to come in, and depending on where the AHL season is at, I think Joe will either go and play a lot of games, because as Nick Constanica pointed out, they really want them to play, or he will come onto the taxi squad. He's played a lot of hockey. Maybe he can step into the lineup. I think, and Steve might kick me for saying this, I think Seider's a given. He's going to walk right out of Sweden and right into the Red Wing lineup. I cannot see that not happening. I think he's ready. I think it's time. And I think we would have saw him last season if COVID-19 didn't shut it down. The other interesting thing that I thought he said was when he was talking about this schedule, and it is going to be a baseball schedule. So get used to it. I mean, they're going to hit Chicago and Dallas and Nashville probably in the same trip, 2-2-2, and they're going to be 2-game series, which makes sense, meaning that we'll see Chicago, we'll see all the teams. I'm obsessed with Chicago, I guess. We'll see all the teams in the division twice at Little Caesars Arena, and each time it'll be a 2-game series. I think he's happy. I think he's relieved. I loved his Michigan Red Wing hat, as you know. I had to point that out to him.
Of course,
very good look for you, Steve. Very good look. But I also thought was interesting because we're all talking about the taxi squad, and these guys are going to be able to work out with the Red Wings every day, and they're going to be practicing. And depending on, unfortunately, if a player tests positive, they might be inserted in the lineup rather quickly, and that it could be an opportunity. Steve kind of tempered that a bit by saying, after a while, these guys on the taxi squad, it's going to be like Groundhog Day for them. Been here, done that, because they're not playing. They're doing everything but competing and playing games, and they're competitors. So that's interesting, and that's an aspect, quite frankly, even though I'm a very competitive individual, that I didn't think about. I did not think about that, but I guess that makes sense. Rasmussen's back, the Phils are back. I knew Gus Lindstrom was coming back. Bromia, however it's said. I think that and we'll have to ask him because I've heard it now several different ways. We'll have like when Jan Bednash comes here. I think he's going to go out of his mind and say, no, it's not Bednar. I know it looks like Bednar to you English people, but it's Bednash. But anyway, yes, and he's playing for the Czech Republic in the World Junior. Check him out. But with all that said, I just think that he seems relieved. And again, he's kicking the tires. He's looking at potential opportunity and adding to this team. Obviously, as Carly said, naming a captain. So I think that I thought, because the NHL likes to keep things guarded, I think if it was finalized, I truly believe Steve would have read off all 58 games that the Red Wings are that they're going to play. Didn't it seem like, hey, I got it right here, man. I'm just begging to tell somebody about this. Finalized. They're going to be playing a lot of games, a lot of hockey. Obviously, I think he would have liked more time for the Red Wings on the ice. I think this 3 days is a bit of a sham, although he did try to say that, well, look, these teams, even though they play for the Stanley Cup and all that, are they really at an advantage? Well, each day they get further away from that advantage. So they're all kind of in the same boat. I think they're going to make the best of it. I know he's on that AHL committee, and I think that that's really going to be the really important thing, because what the AHL does, if Grand Rapids, and I know they want one, and I hope for all the good people in Grand Rapids, I love going to Grand Rapids and checking the Griffins out and hanging in GR and watching practices with Ben Simon and that whole crew. I love doing that, talking to the fellas, the prospects. Hopefully they're able to have a season that may impact how they construct their taxi squad, because I would say if, I guess what could happen is they could be on the taxi squad for a while, go back to Grand Rapids and play if they're on the taxi squad, not playing games, that is, competitive games. I like that. I know that some of the ECHL teams with the Toledo Walleye are resident, play in. I think some of those teams have actually canceled their season. Last thing I read was Toledo has not done that. They're going to try to get a season. The Walleye, too, could become an important cog to the Red Wings as well. So I think the whole structure of how it's all going to, from Detroit top, how it filters down, will have an impact on that roster, especially the taxi squad. It looks like there's only going to be one sheet of ice. So I think we know where we're going to be doing the WOW shows and all our special, training camp shows from it. And it definitely looks like it's just going to be at the Belfour Training Center. Because I would imagine the Pistons, who begin tonight, right? Or tomorrow, I guess. Yeah. The NBA begins tonight. We've seen it. And before Daniela so rudely interrupted me as I was going on to compliment the Little Caesars arena crew about the way they put that floor in and put that floor out is amazing.
Steve.
Yeah, I know. Steve stole my thunder as usual. But no, but and I apologize because I was rambling, and I think we missed right at the beginning about the captaincy, and so thank God Teddy Colfin asked him that again, or whatever. Steve got around to telling us that again. But I think overall, I'm really curious to see how these. Not that the Red Wings have not gone on long road trips before, but this is going to have a little bit of a baseball feel to it. I would imagine they're at least going to be 4-game road trips, if not 6. Then they're going to come home. So they're going to be home. They're going to be home for a long time, and they're going to be on the road for a long time. But either way, we'll be bringing it to you. So, and this is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity for the Phils. This is a good opportunity for Rasmussen, Chalowski, Giovanni Smith. And that was the last thing that I'm going to say. This will be the last thing I'm going to say, maybe. But the last thing I'm going to say is that I think that we thought that the taxi squad and an expanded roster would be an advantage for these guys. And Steve said that it's going to be a short amount of time for them to prove themselves before they start playing games. Once they start playing games, it doesn't mean that they can't make the team a week or two later. So he wants to probably to put the brakes on if somebody doesn't make the roster right out of this little training camp that they're going to have by the 13th. Don't panic. Don't press the panic button. It doesn't mean that this guy doesn't have an opportunity or he's not a good hockey player. I think that's something we have to keep it in perspective. Whenever Steve speaks, keep it in perspective. He's a calming voice. He's a calming voice of reason. I feel better, and I'm really looking forward to the season's start. Okay, I'm done. Yes.
I'm glad. Beautiful. Well, guys, you all have to be a little bit excited about this because it was great to hear from Steve Yzerman and everything he had to say about the upcoming season. That's all that we have for you guys today. So I think I speak for all three of us when I say we hope you have a great holiday. The Word on Woodward will be taking a little break again. We'll be back on January 5th. That's a Tuesday, January 5th. We'll be back with all the Red Wings and Tigers news. Stay tuned to Red Wings social media for more on training camp coverage and everything that's going to come with it. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. We'll see you next time.